today, so I didn't ask anyone to do an invocation or a thought, so I will do it. And some of you may have heard this. This is from President Reagan's farewell speech to the nation when he left office. We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route and how fast. Almost all of the world constitutions are documents in which the government tell the people what their privileges are. Our Constitution is a document in which we, the people, tell the government what it is allowed to do. And now we'll have the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What?
The eagle is facing the other way. Anyway.
Oh.
Oh, we're supposed to look at the flag. Okay, so before we get started with Mr. Espinosa, have we?
I do have a report, Sandy.
Oh, hey.
Yes, I know how to do it now.
Okay.
There were no responses.
Okay, no emails?
Yeah.
Okay, Randy's talking about, there's an email set up for if the public has.
Public wants to throw ideas into the realm here to be discussed or added to our discussion. And as of yet, there were not any.
Okay. Thank you, Randy. And so now we will let Dave take over and present us his budget.
Can I, one pause
Certainly.
before we,
Yes.
because there was a whole bunch of stuff last time that kind of, I'm not gonna go over all my questions, but the one thing I forgot to ask, I didn't put it in there, was, does it cost more for the ballots or for machines when we do elections?
We don't have, I don't think we have an option, do we?
I don't know, that was the question too. Because, we were talking about how we had paid so much to have mail-in ballots, and I'm like, well, why can't we just stop that and go to machine?
So the city does have the option. I don't know that we've priced it out to rent the electronic machines and have them here and then staff the facility for it. But usually it's like for a week they do it, or is it all just election day? I'm trying to remember. But anytime there's another, I'd have to ask the county, because if they do a county election, would they accept our results from our machines, or or there'd be two different? So it'd be a ballot sent to every house from the county and then machines. I'll need to ask about that.
It's just a wonderment, because I thought, back in the day, just the only people that got ballots in the mail were absentees, like military and stuff. And, I mean, if it costs that much, I just hit me the other day.
Oh, go ahead.
So their letter just says it's $225 per voter. It doesn't really give like
Just
much of a breakdown.
Yeah. And they are more than likely, the fire district will have a election as well, so that will help. That we'll be sharing the cost, because we'll share the cost of the mailing. But if they don't have a primary, for example, then they wouldn't share that cost.
Okay.
And then one other thing before we get into the budgets. So last Wednesday, we had an in-between Wednesday meeting where there was no presentation, but we met. And during that time, we decided it probably wasn't worth it, because it's difficult for a lot of people to get here to begin with. And what we decided to try tonight and see if it works is to just, when the presentations are done, we'll just stick around for a little bit and discuss things and jot down any notes or thoughts or whatever. Is everyone good? Yes.
Doug not being here, I would not be surprised if he wanted to meet next week to discuss it.
Well,
Today.
Yeah, but that's the whole reason we said we would do it tonight after the meeting, so I'm not gonna plan anything for next Wednesday, because there's always somebody who's not gonna make it, and they have to
Special
make,
meeting,
yeah, they have to make do with, and we did ask your questions this past Wednesday, and that meeting didn't get uploaded live at the time because there was some issue with whether we had to do that, but it will be where you can view it, probably this evening, John, or
Yes.
tomorrow. Yeah.
I'll upload it today.
Okay, so you'll be able to go and look at the answers to your questions, and anyone that wants to watch the meeting can do that. Good, okay. So, it's all yours.
Perfect. So, Ty, I'll have you come up here real quick. So this is Tyrell. Tyrell's over our motor pool, fleet. No, you're okay. I think we're all right. So just if we did have any questions during, the motor pool session, a lot of times Ty's gonna be able to help me. Do you want me to just go through each one? Do you want me to go through big ticket items? What's your guys' thoughts?
I say go through them. If we have a question, then we can stop and ask.
Okay, so, as you
And we'll
guys,
leave it up to you to call on anyone that's got questions.
okay, perfect. So as you guys can see, just starting with uniform allowance, that one's went down a little bit. The reasoning behind that, there's a couple of things, we just haven't, in the last few years, we just haven't used the maximum amount we've been able to buy with what we have. And last year, he got a new person, we've got them kind of outfitted, and now we can go back on that
How do
price.
you do that? Is it, you just give them so many a year, or is it a laundry system? How do you?
So it's kind of a combination of what you're saying. So there's a laundry system, especially for these guys, because how hard the grease and that kind of stuff is on their clothing. So we have a laundry system for them, where they all have coveralls. I think they get, a quantity of coveralls that they can wear every single day, which are laundered. All of our towels and those kind of things down at the shop, our rags are on that as well. And then there's the pants and shirts part of it, where we give them an allowance to go get pants, mostly to like either Cal Ranch or Smith and Edwards. And then the shirts I order. I give them about 3 different options of shirts with our logo, those things on them, and we buy the shirts there.
Quick
Right
question,
now-
quick question on that. Have there been any quality issues with the materials that you have received, coveralls and things like that? All the left is expected, or?
Sometimes we have to turn in the coveralls back. That's why we rent those, because we bought them or we've talked about buying them before,
Yeah.
but then we have to buy a washing machine and it's
Yeah.
like with the greases and everything. So
Sure.
the coveralls, we just decided to rent them because then we can, once they're rented, we kind of turn back over to the company.
What's the difference rent wise versus actual out of pocket cost, rent front cost?
That's a very good question. I know they were really similar, but like we weren't gonna save a ton of money, buying them, and so that's kind of where I can get that numbers for you guys for sure. Okay. And then the other part's just the boots, getting boots for these guys. As far as,
Is that an allowance as well?
yes, yeah. Again, same thing, where they either go to, it's either, place I remember now. Yeah, you got Boot Barn, you got, Smith and Edwards, you got Cal Ranch, IFA, I think is kind of those 4 places where moving on, if there's no other questions about uniforms, the subscriptions and memberships, you can see that's went way down. If you look down on computer services, it was just reallocating where those funds actually went. So we used to have that Mitchell and the scanning tool up in the subscriptions and memberships. We've just moved it down in computer services where it should be. So that's just more of a cleanup item, so you can kind of see that that's swapped there. Building maintenance, the reason this numbers went up is Ty has been asked to take over our building maintenance. So
not only is he over our fleet, but he is also over all the building maintenance for the whole city. If anybody has any issues, they go through Ty determines if we can do it in-house or if we have to sub it out.
This is time.
This is Tyrell, sorry, actually, I messed that up. So, yes, Tyrell's our fleet director. He's been with us for what, 11 years now?
Almost
14 years.
How time flies.
Yeah.
What fund went down in cost to transfer that over to here?
So it was some of it in admin?
So it's still being charged, so there's not,
We should have a savings someplace.
so, well, we do, so it's the cleaning services. Cleaning services, and then, we've always done building maintenance. It's just been handled in different, departments, kind of depending on who's in the building. And now we've just combined that and said Tyrone is here now in charge of it. So there's always been the expense there, and so that you'll see the expense where he now needs to stop for tools for the truck. That is something new, and I do believe it's because you'll be handling like even like park maintenance once in a while or whatnot. So we need to be able to have what he needs when in his truck, because his main office is over at Public Works, and then he's coming here.
So there
So
should
we
be a
need to
little
be
bit
able
of
to
savings
stock
in a
that.
lot of departments.
Yeah, there will be. I mean, we have a general department for building and maintenance, so. Yeah, it's kind of split between motor pool and general fund.
As you can see, the tri-state has stayed the same from last year. The reason you're seeing some of those rural waters in tri-state is they go down there and there's heavy equipment and different things that are sold, trainings that are done at rural water. So it's not a water training that he's getting, he actually goes down for the fleet services. They have different things down there as far as how you service equipment and those kind of things that we do down there. Vehicle maintenance, we dropped that just because his fleet now his vehicles now have all brand new vehicles. There's none of the older trucks in there, so the maintenance on it has just went way down, and so we've dropped that down. Fuel and parts, same thing. It's just the fuel for their department. We've looked at historical costs, and those have typically been around that $4,000 range, not the $8,000 we used to have on there.
And we used to have the cemetery and the fire department.
Paying into the fleet,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, they would come over and get fuel from our tanks, and I don't think they do that anymore. They use Maverick.
Yeah, they do.
Quick question for you on the vehicle maintenance services. I guess since it's new vehicles, they're under warranty, majority of issues other than just lube oil, whatnot, that's going to be handled by the dealership then.
Yep.
Okay. And are these leased or purchased?
So these ones are purchased.
Okay.
So the ones that we talked about last week were all leased vehicles, but going in and you'll see it down the list is they're actually purchased. And so what we do is we have a program with Young Chevrolet. We can kind of talk about it right now, but what we do is we purchase the vehicle on state contract. And then what happens is because that pricing is so good from the state with the straight contract, that Young Chevrolet will turn around and buy it from us 1 year later for the exact same price that we bought it from them because they can still sell it for.
I know, it doesn't make sense, but it works.
And occasionally there is a bump when the model upgrades, we'll pay $600 or a little bit. This year was kind of expensive.
Yeah.
But usually we break even. We have to keep them under a certain number of miles, and they can't, any damage we pay for to fix and stuff, but
So you try it in a year.
Yeah, so that's why you see the new trucks over there almost every single year. It's that, they're supposed to be in October. The weird things that have been happening lately is it's been kind of all over, but what they do is, yeah, exactly what that is we keep them under 12,000. We turn the trucks back over to them. They give us the full price for them because they can turn around and sell them for probably $5,000 on top of that. So
Wow. How many do you have?
there's 20.
21.
That's part.
Yeah, that's it.
Did they figure that there's some promotional advantage to having their brand on all of our trucks, looking sharp, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, and to be honest with you, that's the thing about Young's is Young's has got so big that really, like, we've typically went with GM for a long, long time. But GM's had a lot of problems trying to get us inventory, so this last year, the year and a half, we went to Fords actually on all of our half-ton trucks. The heavy duties, we've still kept either Chevy or GMC, but, so,
Did you negotiate that deal?
yeah, we always work with them. Huh?
Did you negotiate?
Yes, yeah, so we started the program, what, 7 years ago? 15, I believe, was when we started that. 17.
Well, that's a feather in your cap. That's good.
The motor pool doesn't own any of the money, not say own, so it's distributed amongst the other departments.
Yep, okay.
That's a-
So, yeah, the motor pool has and you can see in there, they have the 2 trucks. Can you see in the capital equipment part?
something like that.
Yeah.
That's what it- there it is.
So you see where it says net zero?
Yep.
So we buy the truck every year, because we have to show on the books that we're buying the truck, and then
It
it
has to
shows
show
it, so.
Okay.
Going back to computer services, iWorks is our software that we track all of any kind of maintenance we do on any of the vehicles. It's arm tracking. Also with building maintenance, we can do that there too. We can track, filters and when the last time we changed filters, all that kind of stuff. So that's our software for that. Mitchell and the scanning tool are both mechanic tools. T-Mobile, same way, it's three people are on that plan there. We've got a phone upgrade for one of the people. Department supplies. We've gone up just a little bit. I mean, kind of everything's gone up that way. Aerosol especially, right? Like, it seems like a lot of that has went up a lot. And then there's the used oil disposal as well. We have a service that comes up and does that. Small equipment is kind of a little bit so you've got the topside creeper, which is a mechanic thing where they can work on top of the vehicle, or not on top of the vehicle, on top of the engine. But the other tools are a little bit what Jamie just talked about, and that's just stocking that one truck because now we are doing building maintenance, that we're going to stock that vehicle. So that's why there's that. Equipment leases. So these are all the things that are all the pieces of equipment that we lease. The backhoe, the trackhoe, the skid steer, those are all through, well, backhoe is through John Deere, right? The other two are through
Backhoe and the skid steer.
are through John Deere.
John Deere.
The trackhoe is through Bancorp. The snowplow truck is through Bancorp. And then you see those Tundras there. It was part of that leasing program we talked about with the admin buildings. That's where these leases show up, is right here. So the leasing program, we talked a little bit about it last week, but just to give you an idea, so some of our vehicles we actually lease because we can keep them in a lot better shape just because they're here, they're more admin vehicles. Some of our inspectors use them so they stay on the blacktop, right? And those ones we actually turn over. The vehicles are about 3,100, right around there for the vehicle. So the way it works with Bancorp is that they make the money off of the interest from the lease. But then when they turn the vehicle over, whatever amount of money that they make off that vehicle actually comes back to the city. So on the Traverses that we had last year, we paid out about 3,100 and we actually made about 4,000 on some of those vehicles. So we were actually making money to run those vehicles. So, so that's how the lease vehicles work. And those are the ones that are typically nicer. They stay on the blacktop. We don't have, we're not taking them up the canyons or different things like that. So
they're able to stay nice.
Well, and this year you see the Tundra Parks. So we're trying that in the Parks Department to see if, because those stay on the blacktop, but they're also get equipment in them. And so we're trying it this year to see if we can use them and not abuse them. And then instead of buying brand new trucks.
So the Tundra, this is a brand or the Toyota Tundra?
It's a Toyota Tundra.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, yeah.
So they-
The lift truck, we've had it in the budget for a couple of years now. It really is time to get a new lift truck. We use it for a lot of different departments. You probably see the park use it when we do Christmas lights. We do all of our light. So all the lights in the city are ours to maintain because now, God, I don't know, 2013 or 14 is when we went to LED. So in 2013 or 14, we did a deal with Rocky Mountain Power where we moved all of our lights to LED. At that time, we basically took on the maintenance, but we were able to drop our bill quite a bit because all of our street lights went to LEDs. And so, and for the most part, I mean, they're very self-sufficient. Like there's not ballast and all the craziness to that. So, but we work on those. Yeah, so that lift truck is well used, and we bought this one actually used, and these guys have had to keep it up and maintaining, but it's just kind of time to replace that lift truck. The big mower, you'll see that lease. This is one of the first years that we're trying to move to a big mower. I don't know. I mean, everybody's had a hard time hiring, especially seasonal help. But we're finding that this can replace basically, or it'll replace two guys, right? Instead of having two smaller mowers in a park, we'll be able to use this big mower. And so we're finding, with that lease at $15,000, I think we're gonna be able to replace a whole person. And so that should be almost a pass through with that.
What kind of mower is it?
It's a John Deere. It's the big, like they can actually drive it from park to park. I think we'll also be a lot more efficient. I've talked to John a little bit about that is, the little mowers have to wait for the guys that go trim and edge and do all those things. And they're always kind of waiting on each other a little bit. Where that guy will be able to just go to the next park and he can keep working and they can kind of keep working. So I think it'll make us a little more efficient as far as that goes as well. Okay, capital equipment. So
Just a quick question, kind of backing up here. When, for depreciation, there's been a 76.5% increase. Can you explain that to me in those terms?
Snow plows, we're expecting, so we have a new snow plow that we're getting this year, and then we're expecting to have another snow plow next year.
Okay.
So we're including that in the budget.
How is insurance for all these things covered? Where does that fall in?
So that, it's you'll see it in non-departmental,
Okay.
in the general fund that's allocated to all of the funds.
All right, thank you.
So that,
The depreciation just kind of goes into a slush fund, but it's not something that you have to clean, it just goes into the,
It's part of operations, so we do have to account for it,
right, but it's not,
and it's, yes, it
you're
kind of,
not physically paying anybody.
right, kind of goes into a savings program, if you will. Mhm.
and then, capital equipment. So, like Jamie said, we're actually gonna add a snowplow truck. We're gonna try something new this year that we hadn't done before. So snowplow trucks, just to give you an idea, we get one next month. We ordered that thing in 2021.
Yeah.
So it will be and it was May of 2021. So it'll be exactly 24 months that we waited on that truck to come. And they're very expensive. What was, I mean, well, we've got that price there, right?
We got the lease price.
Oh, anyways, it was,
180,000 bucks.
no, 180 is the new one, the one we're going to.
Oh,
It was over 300. I
So
believe.
it's,
6 times.
it's like, 248,
Yeah.
something like that.
So it's a big cup holders.
So it's just, it's been crazy how the increases on these big snowplow trucks. And the problem is that they're
they're single use. I mean, they really are just for snow plowing. There's some of those big ones, right, with the wings. And so there's a place for them and we have, we have them, but we're gonna try them with these trucks. So these are 550 Fords. They'll have a dump bed on them. It'll have a smaller wing. It's not gonna be the wing that we have on some of the other, the bigger ones because it's.
Wing, you mean a plow?
Yeah, so there will be a plow and then there's actually a side wing.
Okay.
It's only what, 8 feet?
4 on those.
Oh, it's just like 4 feet.
Yeah.
But so we can pair that up with one of those big trucks. But the nice thing is that we'll be able to take that equipment off in the summertime and use the dump truck for other uses and stuff. So we're gonna try and see, we really think it'll be something that'll be beneficial and it has a place for it for sure.
In 2 years.
No, so that's what's the other nice thing about the 550s is we'll be able to get that.
They have this on
Yeah.
stock.
Yeah, so we'll be able to get it outfitted and everything in this budget here, or the one coming up, so. So we won't have to wait the 2 years to get that.
It'll be ready for the snowstorm in August.
We got May.
We get 5. We get 5.
We're not laughing over here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
How many big snowplows do we have?
so we have 12 big ones, and then we run 8. 10 gold sack trucks? So yeah. So we run 22 trucks. When we're so big operation. Yeah.
Just want to say you guys have been awesome.
Thank you.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have really killed it. So talk about snowplow truck, parks and mower. So these are those mid-size mowers that we talked about. So what the parks has always done is we buy one in June and one in July, so that we kind of buy 2 new ones together, and then we wait 2 years and we buy 2 new ones together. Does that make sense? So we're always rotating these mowers out, but we do it over 2 fiscal years because one's in June and one's in July. So we're basically buying one every year, but it seems like it's every 2 years because we wait till the following June, July. Does that make sense? So, so that's those mowers. The loader forks, we have some loader forks. They're just, when we had our walkthrough, they're just not safe because they don't lock. So these loader forks will now lock, so they can't come off when we're unloading and loading different things. From a safety standpoint, it's something we definitely need. And then you see your 2 trucks where they're in net zero. Any questions with fleet?
So how does that come out net zero? It's just the fact that you have to account for it, but then it comes back somewhere else.
So, yeah, in the revenue side.
Okay.
We don't, yeah.
Good, yeah.
Cool.
Good job, Scott.
Well, did you have that? Jason? Did you have that? How are you?
Good, how are you?
Jason, we stopped snow plowing at about 8 o'clock and we got water leak about 8:25. So
So what is his budget?
is the water department.
Oh, water.
Yep.
Okay. My papers, I don't think the same order.
So yes, this is Jason Reed. Jason's been with the city for 19 years.
Wow.
Took a 1-year break, 1.5-year break, 2 years break. Where he left us for a minute and came back because we're so awesome. Definitely.
When I learned about.
No, to be honest with you, Jason is by far the most talented water superintendent in the state. I would fight that tooth and nail with anybody around. So our water system is very unique in the way that, just to give you guys an idea, here in the city, we are one of the only self-sufficient water companies around. We don't buy water from anybody else. We don't, and so we run all of our own system. you want to talk a little bit about how many wells and springs
Yeah, so we have 3 big spring systems that we collect in the canyons are 2 of them, and then above the divide, there's a Rice Creek system. So we collect those, and then we have down in town, we've got there's 4 wells in town, and then there's multiple pump stations that we draft water from either the well manifold or the distribution or a reservoir, and we pump it up to the next higher zone and we gravity feed that water back down. So some of these items you'll see preventative maintenance, but there's kind of twofold. When you have as much elevation as we have top to bottom, if we didn't have PRV stations inside of all those pressure zones is what we call them, we'd have over 500 PSI at the bottom of the city.
So we have 0 up at the
So we don't
top.
have it at the top. So we basically start at, the top, and we try and gravity feed everything below. It's like 3,600 north, just off of the spring systems, and then everything north of there is pumped to 2 reservoirs up on the north bench. And then we try not to let that water down through the zone unless there's like a really major loss in pressure. It'll automatically let it through, but we try not to. We've got the PRVs backed off to where they won't let those through on a normal operation. So
Yeah, like Jason said, I mean, it's almost like we run 4 systems all at once, right? Like we're boosting water, there's some that's gravity fed, we're chlorinating here. We have to do other things to get water to other places. And so, like I said, it's a very unique system, and it's very intense sometimes, like.
So is
What these guys
yeah,
do.
because I noticed chlorine was 75 grand, but is that put in each spot, or is that?
Mostly.
Okay.
So we use gas chlorine still, and so they're 150-pound cylinders that these guys monitor 3 times or so. They have to by state rules that they have to go up there 3 times a week. But we also have a SCADA system, a computer software that we actually can monitor our whole system on as well. That turns on wells and pumps when they need to, when levels hit certain things, and so there's a lot of watching that as well, making sure it's running properly. So.
that line item you saw, that's the total budget for this. That's not just for chlorine. That's for the department supplies.
Yeah, so department supplies for everything. But that's in there.
It's right next to it, so it kind of appears that way, sure.
Well, it's one of those things that nobody thinks about until something goes wrong. Well, there's been a couple of cities in Northern California that's blew up on them, and it becomes a huge deal all of a sudden, so, need to be grateful.
Yes. No, we have such an awesome water department and water team that they do a great job with what they do, so. Kind of go through it. We dropped uniforms allowance down a little bit the same way. It was just, we'd watched over the last few years and we haven't been using that kind of money, so we adjusted accordingly. Subscription to memberships, that's kind of the exact same thing that I talked about with ties. You can see that it's almost the exact same difference between that and computer services. We dropped 20,700. We just put it right down to computer services. It's just a cleanup item for us. Public notices, we went up a little bit. So to give you an idea, we are also one of the only cities in the whole state of Utah that has a fixed base reading system. So all of our reads actually there's a antenna that's up at Rice Creek with multiple repeaters down here that are actually powered by light poles. And what it does is it reads your meters. Like we used to have the old drive-by system where we drive through town and pick up all the reads. Like this actually sends the reads up there twice a day. These guys they can pull a read if we absolutely needed to, we could.
For leaks and things?
Yep. So it's great for that, right? So this is where that public notices come in, is our leak monitoring is almost second to none, And so we have somebody actually constantly watching those, like if we catch something, they're sending out notices, we'll call houses, we can send out notices to people like, hey, we're noticing your bill's starting to creep up. We think you might have a leak, check these different things, or they can call us and set up an appointment. We'll go out and actually help them troubleshoot if they actually have a leak, or if it's just if it's just usage in the house, but most of the time we can catch it, because if that thing runs 24 hours, so we can see on our software where even at night, it's not stopping, it's like, we know that's a leak, right? So then we can help them troubleshoot those things. Travel, same thing, we've kind of been steady there. The one thing I know got brought up in previous meetings is, why aren't you guys doing some online stuff? Just to give you an idea, the state or the rural waters came out and said, hey, so these guys actually need 30 hours every 2 years of education to make sure that we keep up on our water system. And they came out and said, hey, just so you guys know, you guys can only take 25% online, because we want you to be in the classroom, we want you to be physically there.
Questions and
And
answers,
completely
yeah.
focused with us, because, I mean, that's the thing about the online sometimes is, you log in and then there's other things going on around you, and so we've really found that it's a very good tool to send these guys to class. And then there's the other part of it, right? They get to see, me and Jason have been able to find new water bands, so when we're fixing repairing leaks, like they're able to cut down on the time that we have to do things because there's new technology out there all the time. And so the interfacing with that is just, it's tremendous, and it's huge to make sure that we're actually going to some of these classes. So I just wanted to address some of that because I know there was some questions before. Postage, again, a lot of it's with either the late fee notices, water leak stuff. A lot of that stuff is just from the postage. That's why that's went up.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yes.
Now, does that cover your bills?
Yep, sending out the bills, everything. Yep.
So is that, they divide that up amongst the other ones? Because I just noticed that they have.
Yeah. Yep.
But I
So,
figured, but I just-
All the enterprise funds. So you got water, sewer, stormwater,
Each
solid
have
waste.
for that.
Yep. Fuel and parts is just that. It's just fuel and parts. What we, if the mechanics have to do anything, that's where Ty will actually charge this account. But mostly, this account is just fuel.
Is there, I don't know if it's legal to say, because I mean, most companies or whatever, they don't want to send it to paper. And so you can sign up for electronic stuff. Is that something that the
We
city
offer.
can do or no?
We offer that, yeah. We offer paperless billing or paperless bills. Statements, yeah.
Wow, I would do that in a second, but I don't. Is that on?
So it's through Express Bill Pay?
Right.
Mhm.
But I still get a bill in the mail then.
No, you don't. If you sign up, you don't.
So you have the
I
option,
don't get
you can have the option of doing both.
So I
Yeah, I
have to
think-
look at it.
Yeah, I think there's a place to click that like to go paperless and it'll just email it to you, I think.
We need to publicize that, even for people. So they know that. Okay. That would save on trying to constantly, of course, then that negates when you're trying to send something out that reminds people to do something.
Their utility bill.
Well, I guess it would, well, I guess it would be in the email too, right?
It will still be in the email, yeah.
We have the city magazine.
Where's that from?
Interfund,
Okay.
non-departmental.
We haven't got to that yet, right?
I know. I was.
Computer services,
Oh,
so
just saying,
that,
I have comments on that. How to make sure they get made. We're not there yet.
iWorks again, same thing, it's our software to make sure they're doing their work orders, those kind of things, that's where all iWorks comes through. That master meter host, so that is our fixed base system. So there's, like I said, there is so much data and them hosting that reading system, that's where that price comes through.
And
And
that's
then
also an insurance policy with it, that they have, that if the tower goes down, they're basically gonna give you a tower to bring it back online. So that was part of their costs per year. And I think part of it is they're assuming that not every year your tower is gonna go down. But ours went down this year and we didn't see an increase in cost. So over the next probably 5 years, we may not see it go down, but it's a $70,000 tower. So this is kind of a prorating itself, if you will. So
Phones all stay the same. Power for pumping, we actually dropped that. That's because we have so much snow. So we're expecting that those 3 springs that he spoke about, they can feed about 3/4 of our city. With that, yeah, and that's all just gravity fed, right? So there's not a lot of energy to run around. Yeah, so.
So you have 30 grand in sandbags then, is that? what-
Yeah.
So some of these things on your budget vary quite a bit from year to year.
Yeah. So, I mean, so just to give you an idea, that 90,000, I think we've already hit this year because last year we didn't get any snow, right? And so we were pumping so much water from our wells. And so that cost went up. I mean, so you can see that that's why we had a budget of 120 last year.
We try and base it off of the snowpack. You know, if it's really a poor year, then we'll add to it to try and not do a budget amendment. But if this isn't used, say we only use 90,000 instead of the 120, it just goes back as retained earnings, which funds the future budget. So
So what was the water shares? Did you skip that or did I miss?
Sorry.
What was
Water
the tax
shares.
assessment?
Oh.
Tax assessment ownerships.
And so that's just our stuff at the state, I guess.
yeah, so but we have a few different ones, John, and remind me. But we have Ogden River Users Association. We have some irrigation companies that we pay into, and then there's just multiple small ones that we kind of have to pay out user dues, if you will. So.
I had certain.
Building maintenance, a lot of, because our system, we have to constantly keep running. We have big generators at every single one of our sites. They have to be serviced. They're big Cummins generators that we have to constantly get serviced, make sure that they're running properly so that we don't have any kind of lapse in any power for pumping or any of that.
PRV stands for.
Pressure regulated. The Lakeview Drive is just that, it's the.
So it's a PRV station itself, and we're gonna put some automated controls on there that we can adjust from our computer rather than drive up there, pump it out, make an adjustment, and then.
And you have somebody up on top like, hey,
So-
did that work?
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, so it basically, it'll monitor high and low pressure, and then we can adjust the setting, and then the value shows up and it tells you, hey, this is about what this % open is, which is equivalent to this much flow.
Yeah.
So we can kind of see when the springs are slowing down in the fall, we bring them up a little bit with a pump station, and then we gravity feed down to that zone. So it's just a lot easier, and that's the one station that we typically, we make a lot of adjustments in. So
Because it's right.
if we can automate it, it's gonna be a lot easier. If we could do it, I could do it from anywhere that has internet. So.
By the 50% increase,
It's just that,
that one pump regulating now. Oh, okay. 20 grand, that's what. But, so I mean, I guess. It doesn't really go into this, I don't think anywhere. It was the protection and stuff like that, because I know water especially is huge when it comes to cybersecurity, but I guess that's true too. But like, because you guys said you can change valves and stuff like that, but is the protection, I don't know, what would you call it, the state or?
Who manages it?
Yeah, I guess the,
question, yeah.
security, barbed wire fence, blah, blah, blah,
Sure.
controls of.
So that was one thing that was brought up in I think it was in some of the rules that came up in the discussion this year, rural water, was that cybersecurity is something that they would assess you points on in your water system rating if you don't have adequate cybersecurity. And so that's, yeah, we have 2-factor authentication for sign-in to get into the systems, and so that's good.
Yeah.
But, I mean, yeah, there's probably, how much prevention are you willing to get into, and that's a discussion to have for sure.
Definitely, since we've got so many systems that are wireless dependent. Man-in-the-middle attacks, all sorts of kind of stuff can happen where I can mess with, but anyway.
and so, and just so you know, our SCADA is radio.
It's a secure radio network and
So-
not over the internet. The
Yeah.
only way we can access it through the internet is just to remotely call into the desktop. So, and that has two-factor authentication when we get into that. So that part of it's really pretty stable.
Because a lot of people went to like a web-based system for their SCADA, and me and Jason, we feel like there's a dependability with radio, but there's also that side of it too, the safety side of it. Or it's like we feel like it's a little more secure and
It's there all the time.
Yeah.
If the power's on, it's there. If your generator's on and running, you can transmit data.
so we can hook up.
If your internet's down for whatever reason and you're web-based, you can't turn on a pump, you can't turn off a pump. So if you're overflowing at the tank, you don't even know.
Yeah. Okay. Now, are there regular assessments then done on your radios and things like that? Are there software upgrades that are happening or?
Yeah, so we have an annual software upgrade with our provider, with our SCADA provider, and then if there's an issue, it basically goes into what's called comms fail. So it's comms is communications, so back and forth. So it's like, if it's calling for a level that the tank is calling for water, and it either comes from a valve or a pump. If this tank can't talk to the pump, it goes into comms fail. And then we have to actually physically go to the site, figure out why it's not communicating.
Okay, cool. Preventative maintenance. So preventative goes into that, to the other side of it, right? Like, okay, like how much do we put into preventative maintenance to make sure that, that our system is running at top notch and me and Jason are always like trying to balance that, like what's too much and what, because we could probably go out and replace 50 hydrants if we, you know what I mean? But there's that balance of like, where are we, where's kind of that sweet spot as far as preventative maintenance to where we can lower, some of our leak problems and different things. And so like again, they've just done such a good job, and you can see that in the the PRV maintenance, that $20,000. Sounds like a big ticket, and it is an expense, but we look at that leak that they fixed today. If a PRV goes down, because like Jason was saying, it's controlling the pressure coming down the hill, right? So if we have a PRV and it's not maintenance properly, and it goes down, what it'll do is it'll take the high pressure from above and it'll put it into that next zone down. And so now you have all these pipes in this area that were running at 65 PSI, right? And now they have 120 PSI. Well, that pressure has to get relieved somewhere. And so it'll find the weakest part of your system and it'll blow 2 or 3 leaks, right? And we typically find that a leak costs the city about $6,000. Right around there, right? By the time you dig it up, put the repair bands on, put all the backfill in it and re-asphalt it, you're right around that $6,000 mark. And so, if you have a pressure or, a PRV go out and it causes 3 leaks in that pressure zone, it's like right there. I mean, there's your $20,000 right there. And so, that is something that we stay on top of. And I wish I would have brought that slide, but these guys do a really good job of like getting down there. They're constantly changing the tubing, making sure that everything's running properly, our gauges are accurate, that we're, making sure that we're dewatering those things and so that they're running at really good.
This will be our 3rd year of full tear down rebuilds though, because like some of those, we had a 1999 and a 2003 project where we replaced all of the old vaults that weren't easy to access. And now, at the time, they weren't using a stainless bolt, they were just using grade bolts. And so they're underground and they fill up with water and then they got oxygen to them. So then they start to rust. And the bolts start to kind of fail and they mushroom apart, And so what we've done is we assess the ones with the worst ones, and we're in our 3rd year of actually bolt by bolt, replacing every bolt in the station. Or, buying a new valve if it's not shutting down. Because we get into them sometimes and the valves don't shut off. They're closed, but they don't turn the water off. So then we'll do a mainline shutdown, replace the gate valves, and then we have everything in the middle. So that's been our first was to address all of the stainless changeover from brass to stainless for our piping. Now everything else has just gone bolt by bolt, just because we knew we had to get those switched over because the brass and the copper tubing anymore is so soft because there's no lead in it. So we switched over back in 2011 and it worked really well. And so we got everything switched over by, I think it was 2017, we were done, but now we've been doing this for about our third year of full reconstructs to get them to where everything will hold together. Hopefully for 15 years more.
Something else in preventative maintenance that's not typically there is the spring fence repairs. Again, we go pretty far up the canyon, and both canyons, Coldwater and North Ogden, we go up more than a mile up the canyons. Should have that picture, Brian. We had our guys up there last week, and he's on top of the 6-foot fence, and you can only see about this much of the 6-foot fence. So we know that there's going to be some issues with that top rail where just because of the pressure from the snow, that it'll do some fence, or where we're gonna have to do some fence repairs. So we don't typically put that in, but with the big winter that we had this year, we know that there's gonna be some expenses on those.
You guys have a lot of issues with vandalism on those.
Not so much.
They actually are pretty good.
Cool.
We do have cameras.
Yeah, we have cameras at the site, like at the well.
Okay.
Well houses have them in the quarry buildings, but these are the remote spring access, or they're not access, but like they're fenced in where we collect the water at, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, typically
The
we,
last time we had this much snow, we spent that much money fixing fences.
asphalt is just for, patch repairs when we do water valve replacement. Apartment supplies, like you talked about earlier, that, has all of our repair bands on it, chlorine's in there, kind of anything that's in the department kind of goes into that. This new meters, you see that that's actually going down. We're just not expecting the amount of houses that have been built in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So that's where we've adjusted that. The meter change out. That's just so when we went over to this fixed-based system, what we did is we only changed the radio. The meter itself, we were actually able to keep the meter itself in there. And then we retrofitted a new radio on top of those meters. So we're getting to the point where those things are over 20 years old. And so we put money in here because we're constantly, that the bottoms are blowing out and stuff like that, just because they're older now. And so the next time that we do a meter change, we're gonna have to do a complete meter change. We're gonna change the meter and everything. And
We have on our meter reading software sitting, we read 2 times a day, every day. So we'll see some that stop reading and it comes in a different file, but it's called they'll just come in a non-read or a zero consumption file. And so we'll go to the house and troubleshoot it. If there's people living there, obviously they should be using water. So we'll diagnose the meter, and if it's not functioning, then we just use, that's where that money comes from. But the new connection meters is all coming from impact fees. Or connection
Water
fees.
connection.
Water connection fees.
Sampling has just gone up just because this year we have some different, so we get quite a bit of, so we do weekly sampling, right? But then there's state sampling, and then there's even like federal sampling that are expected of us. We have there's basically a 5-year calendar that we know, like this next year, we're gonna have to do nitrates and these other ones. And sometimes we'll have to go and do lead and copper samples, right? And so we kind of know, we have this 5-year outlook of like, hey, these are the different kind of federal sampling that we're going to have to monitor for or do. And so
Yeah, a lot of
That's
that's
where that-
EPA driven.
Yeah.
And then the state of Utah has primacy over the drinking water, so then they put it out to the state, and then the state regulates it to us. But we've got this new one, it's the unregulated contaminant monitoring, stage 5, which is just, everybody's always looking for something new to monitor for. So I guess it's not bad, but it's the
So the
fifth
weekly
stage.
testing, is that on the wells, the spring, or is that?
So we pull them at the spring sources and in the reservoirs, and then we pull system samples as well. So
And
we'll
you do that every week?
So we take 5 a week. That's required by the state. It's 20 a month that we have to take. But we actually take 8 total every week, just at the spring sources, just to make sure everything's good there. And then,
So we also include, sorry,
Well, in the letters you guys send out, because periodically I will get an update, here's water quality and whatnot. Oh, hell, that was gonna end.
we don't have fluoride.
Okay, never mind. Shoot.
it'll come back.
It will, okay, thanks.
Just blurt it out.
Yeah, so we do not have fluoride in the water here, so.
Should. Grew up in upstate New York, the dental service. You go back east where they have fluoride.
We also monitor
Bicentennial.
bicentennial as well.
Okay.
It's not, we don't put chlorine or anything in it, but.
I'm sorry, bicentennial's a little.
The tree,
or
the tree stump.
Okay, alright.
So we just monitor that just for our own sake to know that, that
You're not passing junk to the.
that thing is always running good, but it does, we don't chlorinate it or anything else. So that's the only thing we do is just sample it.
So that one is not, that's not considered one of your wells, the tree stump?
No.
It's its own water
It's on-
system
Yeah,
because it's considered transient non-community.
But
So
you test it,
we do test it.
we test it, that's
For
all.
bacteria.
But it doesn't like go into our system whatsoever.
no, but that's my house.
Well,
I'm on
the
I'm
well
on
you
that
have
well.
is basically the same
Yeah.
aquifer that's.
So
over
yes,
there.
we do test it. So
Okay, good.
Yep.
That's what I was told, so I'm glad to know that.
So, yeah, that one's not a community system because nobody's connected to it and people come to it to get the water, so.
But it goes down somewhere, because that's where I get the water out from my house is from that same well.
Oh, it's coming up, but we just discharge the waste to the canal.
Well, my house water's not coming from the canal, is it?
No, your
No.
water's coming.
More expensive
So that's
than
where
really
it's
is.
Wastewater.
So Brenda, you have a separate well that's tapped into the same
It's in
aquifer.
the same.
Yeah.
Possible. We'd have to look at your well.
I think it does say that.
Does it?
Yeah, I think
I mean,
there's
it's
3.
it's only 1,000 feet away, right?
I think that's what we've always been told, is that we're the
in that
same
same
well system.
aquifer. Small equipment, just that. So we've got metal detectors, a valve exerciser. We put it on the valve itself. It runs it really slowly where it opens up the valve and then it'll reclose, or most of the time it's actually closing the valve and then it'll actually reopen it. This is just to exercise that valve because you don't want it to get stuck in a position to where, actually today, where we needed to shut off and we couldn't get that. I mean, these guys, we ended up having to go outside the scope of where that leak was and shut off farther out because our valves weren't shutting off properly where they're at. And so this will, that exerciser will make a huge difference in our system.
Let me take you back just a second. Bad debt? Explain what that is.
That's just if we can't collect on bills, we have to have that in our budget. And then if we like to send them to collections or whatnot, so if we're writing off water bill, we have to account for it.
And depreciation is, what are we depreciating for these guys?
Yep,
No, what?
A lot of.
Yep.
So all the pump
all the
houses, all
infrastructure, all the pump houses,
the-
water lines, trucks, equipment.
Infrastructure, yes. Those,
Just out of curiosity, the bottling company down here, where are they getting their water from?
Admiral.
Yeah,
So that's, I think it's coming from Pleasant View City or Bonavista. Vista. I
okay,
think it might be actually in Bonavista Vista because I don't know if Pleasant View has enough water to sell,
okay,
which would be Bonavista Vista getting it to them.
not us.
those pipeliners you put in, where does that show up?
That's sewer, so we'll talk about that here. Purchase equipment, we have an asphalt saw, it's just that, or we've had, the one that we've had longer than that.
2011.
Yeah, right around there.
Replace the one.
So, and then there's just all the trucks, right? Capital projects, you can see that there's a 2 million gallon well on there. Not that reservoir. It's replacing Randall's reservoir, so it's approximately 2,100. Between Fruitland and Mountain Road, I don't know if you've ever seen that tank that's kind of sitting out of the ground a little bit right there,
Yeah.
2,100.
Yeah.
So that one's a 500,000 gallon tank. This will be a 2 million. The reason for that is we are getting a lot more people down here on the flats,
Yeah.
the density, and so we need a bigger tank there because we turn over that 500,000 gallons every single day.
Wow.
So, there's land purchase, for that, the water line will, go ahead.
I'm sorry, just out of curiosity. So how do you guys clean those things?
So there's a-
So we have a remote diving company will come in.
No kidding.
So they come in, they chlorinate, they put a vacuum system.
Okay.
So there's,
Pretty wild. It, like,
they
passes
clean the
water
base
through,
and
but,
it's like,
takes the.
we typically don't see a lot of sediment in the water.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
we'll get,
Okay.
half an inch of sediment and it's
Yeah.
really fine. It just looks kind of like, it's not even sand. It's just like, it's just a really fine, it almost looks like it's just dust that's in the water. It's so fine.
Got it.
So that's typically how we do it. They just come in and they run through the bottom and they inspect the tank for cracks and any of the steel, piping that's in it or ladder connections, things like that.
Got it. Okay.
How often is that?
Typically, we were doing it every 4 years. We're on about 5 years now, just trying to see at what point there's a better, because it's a pretty expensive cleaning, And
So
so
we didn't have a ton of sediment that we were getting out of the tanks, and so.
we don't get a lot of calls, hey, about cloudy water, things like that, but if we're just trying to see where it really pays off to budget and clean it, more often than not.
Every year, that's significant.
Yeah,
So that capital part, that 1 million, that was already planned for from about that one time, that all of the different projects that they had online, that was one of them, and that's why that million is in there.
I don't know if I follow.
Well, it was expected. It's not like, oh, we got to spend $1 million.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
expected. Yeah, because the reason why the budget is so high is because we weren't sure if we're gonna do the tank this year. So we're actually budgeting it for a little bit in this year and next year because they're starting on it now.
Oh, gotcha.
And we cross the fiscal year in July, so I gotta count for it in two years. And so that's why there's a difference there, but it's the same projects.
Okay, but so the total project isn't 37 million or 3.7, is something more than that?
No, that is the
That is
total
the, oh,
project.
okay.
But I have to account for some of that in fiscal year 23 and then also in fiscal year 20.
so what we don't utilize in this fund, we'll
Right.
go back and then they'll reuse, I guess. What's left is the next capital project.
See water line replacement.
But without the snow, we don't know if they'll start before July 1, like, so, I mean, yeah.
Water line replacements, that's the 650, that's just replacing, old water lines. Most of these are getting upgraded to where, by state law now, you have to have an 8-inch line. If you're putting anything new, right? And so some of these are 4s and 6-inch water lines that'll be replaced with an 8-inch, for fire flow and different things for fire protection. As well as just being old, some of these. The one that we're gonna do this year, what year is that?
I think it's in 1960s,
So,
about that era. Which 50 years is typical, but we're a little bit beyond that, But we do get a lot of broken mains in that area. So we're kind of looking in the area between 800 east and 575 east, from 31 to 3300, kind of an older part of town there that we typically have a lot of failures in.
So when they do subdivisions, you guys inspect stuff before they backfill stuff, or is that?
We do now, yeah. Back then, I don't know. I don't know if anybody did back then, because we get rocks as big as this table.
Yeah.
Get out of there, you know?
Pull out a Volkswagen out of them.
Yeah.
Not really.
So-
Probably isn't as big as a.
Yeah. So-
Well, and I guess so all the new infrastructure has the big stuff, you don't have to, based on that. And then,
Yeah.
I guess the one thing because they're able to, meaning the new developers are able to tap into the fire lines to take water for compaction, stuff like that. And would that be revenue that they're generating by paying somebody?
We charge them for the water.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that something that has to be taken account for somewhere in this budget or?
So that comes in as a revenue stream in the hydrant rental.
Okay, so there's a hydrant there somewhere.
Yeah. So if, say, the company that's drilling the fiber optic, so they check out a meter and we start a read and a read, we just send a bill for the water, and that comes in as a revenue.
Okay.
And then if subdivision developers have to do the same thing.
Yeah, sometimes I swear they were tapping in without a meter there. And I was like, "Look at this thing." Yeah,
They shouldn't be.
sure.
And then the TPS drives, I'll let Jason talk a little bit on that. It's just a protection from power surges or power outages on our
So
system.
there's, yeah, I'm thinking, and it's dirty power, if you will. If you don't have good stable power, there's monitoring systems in the well houses. They won't turn a pump on, which is the motor
If you
side.
lose a leg or something.
Yeah, if you're saying you should have 3 legs of power and you have one that's within a certain tolerance, they can go over. Rocky Mountain can deliver you when they should be delivering you 480. They can deliver you like 496, and they can be as low as 8 less, so then that's what they're saying. But then if you've got like,
Yeah.
if you've got surges in the system, the TPS will actually take that surge and absorb it in that rather than send it into your systems, which are very sensitive to power spikes.
I used to work at Little Mountain, which is at the end of Wall Street, and that's literally the end of the line.
Yeah.
There.
Right. Yeah, we get those all the time because like all your homes don't run on 3-phase power, but there's 3-phase they deliver to us or Prime View or an industry that it's going somewhere, but so typically we see that when nobody else does. So it's just and these ones we're gonna go with, they're a 30-year warranty. If it
Yeah, so if it
goes
goes
bad,
bad,
they
they
just ship you new.
get free replacement. So it'll be,
And it's a product that our drive manufacturer recommends, which is US Drives. So
It looks like your entire increase for your total budget is all wrapped up in capital projects
there's
there.
a lot of money in
I know.
capital projects. Any questions for water?
Hey, can I just add something here?
Yes, sir.
As we look at this, the water is a 5-year projection for more of the needs we're gonna have with replacing meters and putting pumps on wells as discussed here.
Yeah.
So we have increased the water revenue charge to make sure we're building reserves to make sure those projects take place as the city grows. So we are probably taking an increase at, this year, of what was it, Jamie?
About $3.
$3. Because as we look out into the future, and fortunately, we've got the ARPA money to help with the
The water tank.
water tank down here. But we don't want to be caught all of a sudden not having capital to replace things and make sure that we're following growth. I'm sorry, I didn't hear if you mentioned that, Dave, but we've got 2 wells that are drilled
Yes, yeah.
that need to be put pump stations on. So that's why you're seeing primarily the increase in water rate this year.
Yeah.
As we look at it.
That's a very good point. What Mary's saying is we have a well that's drilled up North Ogden Canyon. We have one at the top of 1050. That we just, they're ready to go. We just literally need to put a building, chlorine pump, all of that stuff on top of that building, and we can be pumping water. So like Mayor's saying, there's a lot of costs that we know, we can foresee in the next 5 years that are coming. That's why we're doing
So
that.
they grow.
Yes.
So for depreciation, do you track it such that there's say, is there some-
Schedule?
Yeah, so that in the end, you start decrementing it, so you know that you're taking it from the depreciation. That makes sense.
We've done away with unfunded depreciation.
Repair and replacement.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, thank you.
Keep on going. Everything good?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think we're great.
Sorry, one more thing. So Renee, you said he was doing stuff on stuff. So do you guys share across when there's like
Yes.
20, whatever, blah, blah, blah?
Yes, so there's 30 of us now, and so we took parks maintenance as well, just recently. And so there's 30 of us in public works now, for public services now, that, yes, we kind of cross all the time.
Because he drives a truck too, then, right?
Yep, so
Because I've seen him several times and I'm like.
your fault.
No, we usually, but it's just plows, he doesn't, you know.
Yeah.
You don't need to wave at me when you pull out of the driveway. That's my house. I do drive it.
I told her she can sleep now, that we're done with snow plowing.
You can ask me to not do it.
No thanks.
So, yeah, no, all of our,
Or share, okay. That's
everybody,
what I figured, just because there was so many trucks.
Yeah.
I was looking at the budget, like.
no, and there's so many things that we cross over on. I mean, today, in fact, or yesterday, we did shut-offs for the water department. I think we had 10 different guys go out, so we had sewer guys and mechanics, and like, we do quite a bit of that, so that we can.
I figured, but I just wanted to make sure.
Same kind of thing.
Which one are we on?
Sewer, sorry, sewer. So again, we moved subscriptions and memberships. Some of it went to computer services again, same thing. The reason for trench travel and training increasing the way it has, there's a one-time. So we bought a sewer camera system about 5 years ago. There's some upgrades that happen with it, and there's always just like new technology that comes out with that that camera trailer. So he's actually going to go back to Indiana and learn some of the new stuff that the camera can do and those kind of things. So that's not typical in our normal travel and training. It's just this 1 year that we'll be doing it, and then it'll kind of come back out. The other part is we have a new employee in the sewer department, so he's getting his certification. So there's a little more cost in that first year when we get those guys certified. And so that's why you see that increase in sewer is just for that. That's not typical, and next year or the year after that, it'll come back down.
So it's true training and going to Indiana.
I don't know. We wouldn't picked it up before.
It's not Oceanside, California.
No.
How long you been with us?
I've been 18 years.
Well, you got a lot of experience over there with you, Dave, I tell you. That's awesome.
Your people must stay happy.
We are
Wow.
in a very, very good place. The
Yeah.
Public Works, we don't have a lot of turnover. The movement you do see, a lot of it's internal, like the guys. It's interesting. We were talking about our mechanics. One of our mechanics was in the water to start, and one was in sewer. Now that we have two of them that are mechanics. You know, our blue staker started out as a mechanic, and now he's a blue staker. So because we cross a lot, like, it's really good because we have guys that are certified, you know, almost in every department. Like there's somebody that's certified in water. It's very interesting, but no, we've got a really good crew.
Well, the
over there.
accumulated knowledge,
Yes.
when something goes wrong, I mean, you get the knowledge to background to fix it.
There's a lot of fish in that.
Yeah. We have a good thing going over there. Youth services, like we talked about, fuel went down a little bit. It's the same thing. We just looked over the last few years. We've noticed that we're not hitting that mark, and so,
Well, last year we budgeted over $5.
yeah, we were
Five and a
expecting for
half,
five.
you know, a gallon. And now it's come back down a lot, so I'm hoping it'll stay down.
Yes,
Can I take it back to postage and mailing?
please.
All of these come out on one bill. Do you guys just divide it between
Yes.
the departments?
Yeah, so it's kind of like when you guys talked to the other day about like, the paper and all that, like, right? Office supplies. It's the same idea, like it's in one bill and we split it up between the different departments. Computer services, so the Pipe Logics is software for that sewer camera.
You record on, save everything on computer. Customer support through them, because I don't run a computer.
Yeah, so that, it's really awesome. I mean, we're able to record anytime you guys go out and clean and TV, like we can record it, we can host all that. They host all that data there. So. Telephones stayed the same. So this SL rat, I wish I should have brought a picture of that. So this SL rat is 2 years ago, we traded a third. We were gonna put a third employee in sewer. And we decided to go towards technology. And so this SL rat is it's a sound wave machine. So what it does is we pop a manhole and then go 300 feet down to the next manhole. We pop that one and it has a sound wave that what it does is it sends a frequency to itself, right? And so they bounce frequencies back and forth with this machine. And what it does is it literally just takes all that data and it tells you, hey, this pipe is 99% clear. So we know that section of pipe is there isn't any kind of backups, debris or anything like that. And so what it does is it's able to cut down a lot of cleaning, unnecessary cleaning that these guys have to do. So we never knew what that line looked like until we got in there, right? So they go in there and they would use up all kinds of water. We would run the Vector up and back and up and back, and then we go and TV it and say, okay, yeah, everything looks good. Well, now we're actually, before we go out and clean, we have a good idea of what that pipe's looking like, right? And so what it did is it was able to let us we didn't have to hire that extra person because now we can do a lot more focused cleaning. So we cut down on water usage. It's protected our truck. I mean, our truck, we were expecting to have like a 10-year lifespan on it. We think we can extend that out probably to 15 years because we don't have to wear and tear on that truck. And that truck is very expensive. It's like a $500,000 truck. So, and so what it does is, it gives us a whole map of our system. We were able to look at this blueprint and say, okay, like we know that this area has 30% where it's blocked up, for whatever reasons. It could be roots, it could be just a backup. There might be a little belly in there, and so we need to clean it. And so they're able to focus on those areas where the frequency told us that there's kind of an issue there. And so we hire this company that they call SL Rat there, and they come out and they shoot half of our system, right? So for the 50,000, they come out and they shoot half of our system a year. So we have a good idea of where our system is every 2 years, like, what needs to be cleaned and what doesn't, and where we can focus some of our.
So are they keeping the historical data on this, or are they providing you guys with that data and then your books, so you got a hard copy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, so we can pull it up on our software, and then we're actually able to upload it into our GIS so that we can host, so we can have that data for long term. So it's been a great thing. So that's what that is. Let's see the central lever. That's just pass through central lever.
Yes, I know that it says a 12% increase, but it's not, it's actually 5%. For this year coming, so. For the central reserve.
12% to 7%.
Well, down on the left-hand side, it says Q3 12%. Is that what you're
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah, so that'll be a 7 or a 5% increase. And then you see the Ogden City one, there's just a small piece of, up near Mountain Road, kind of by, what's the mechanic? Oh, Jack's, is it Jack's? Jack's.
Frank.
Frank.
Frank's.
You're close. Yours is the
So up there, there's a section of our sewer that there's just no way to keep it in our own system, so it has to go to Ogden, so then we pay them for that portion, but it goes to Ogden.
Yeah, we have to do that for the sewer and for the stormwater.
The 10,000 for asphalt patch, it's just that if we have to go up and if we have to go down and dig up a bad sewer line, that it's just
That's typically the turnaround time, isn't it? When you guys want to dig up the line.
on a sewer repair.
For asphalting or?
Well, yeah, dig it up, do your thing, get done, put the asphalt on, you're good.
It's usually in a day, and we can usually get somebody out here within a couple days.
Asphalt, we usually, for to Jason. We wait until we have a number of patches to make it worth our while,
Okay,
instead of just come out for one little patch.
okay.
Yeah, because a lot of times they're giving us a mobilization fee, right? And so that's
Up for what?
the mobile for them coming out here. So
Okay.
for them moving out here, it's, a certain cost. And so if we can do 10 of them at one time, it saves us.
Cheaper.
So,
Okay,
Just was fixing sewers the same day.
okay, all right, cool.
department supplies, we're just keeping that. It's kind of all to keep these guys safe, the latex gloves, the paint, all that.
I don't see any deodorant.
cologne or something.
Small equipment, there's the push camera. So we have a push camera. So our big camera, obviously it's on wheels. It can only go in what, 4-inch pipe, right?
Six or bigger.
Okay. So this lets us go down some of our like service lines, so we can go into the clean out. We can actually push this camera down and see if we have issues in our system. So the one we've had, I think it was like in 2005 is when we purchased that. Yeah, 20 years almost. It's getting close to being 20 years old. In fact, the monitor and everything that hooks up to it, like they don't make anymore, so we have to borrow.
It's like a big old CRT monitor.
So
or something.
we have a pretty good relationship with Harrisville, so if we need to use our push camera, like we actually have to reach out to them to see if we can borrow their monitor right now. So it's just replacing that push camera. We've used all of its life, so.
Got it.
Yeah, the purchase equipment, same thing on the trucks. It's just that net zero. We just have to show it, right? This is what you were talking about with the lining. So on capital projects, we have a lining contract that we do every year. And what it is all the main lines that are concrete, you get infiltration where in the cracks you get water coming in. You can get roots to grow through those, and so that it can back up your system. And so what we do is we put this sleeve, and I'll let Trent kind of explain it.
It's like he said, a sleeve or a sock. They put it in the line inside out, and they pull it through, and it comes right side out. It has a resin in it, so it goes in with resin, and then they add heat to it. It hardens it, turns the concrete lines to PVC. So then the line will last up to 100 years because PVC and there's no joints where, like they said, no roots, no cracks. A good example, in 2600, I found a broken pipe. So our option was to dig it up and have the road closed down for at least a day. But we can just line this pipe without digging the road up, and the hole's no longer there. So, and if we were to dig up the replace line, instead of use this liner, I'm not sure how many feet of line we'd be replacing, not very many feet compared to what we can line with.
Yeah, I think for, gosh, we did the math one day, but I think for 100 feet of lining, I think we can replace like 11 feet of pipe.
Cost-wise.
Yeah, cost-wise, because by the time you dig it up, do all that, patch it back in, all this is like, I mean, we can keep the road open, when they pull that in, like he said, they fill it full of air so that it kind of molds to what the old pipe looked like, right? And it actually is standalone too, so like, if we, heaven forbid, ever had an earthquake, and that concrete pipe can actually break around it, like, it actually can sustain itself, it's its own pipe inside of that. But
So should there be a number there? I guess.
So we talked about taking the year off. I don't know that it's really decided yet. We took it out for now, but we haven't decided yet.
On the file we got, it was missing, but they had an admin fee, but that one doesn't show that.
Right, so the admin fee, probably the difference is when we caught this one, it was probably because I was in the middle of changing it
Okay, but the
or
one-
updating it,
so
but yeah.
that's-
What percent of the city is done with this stuff now? I know
Exact
you've been doing it
percentage, I
a
don't
few,
know, but we're
doing it a few years. haven't you?
we're over 50% done.
That's great.
as far as the concrete, right?
Yeah,
So we have a
concrete.
lot of other PVC that's in our system. But as far as the concrete, we're over 50% of the concrete being replaced with this.
And how long before the whole city?
And I don't know that we'll ever do PVC, we shouldn't have to. This can be done in storm drain as well.
But as
But of
far
the concrete?
of the concrete, so now we're starting to get into the bigger sizes, so we've been doing 8-inch or up to 8-inch, right?
Yeah, so we still have some 8-inch to do, but we're getting closer, but when we get into like up and down 2600 around Washington, 10 to 12 inch, he's out here 18 to 21 inch, so.
So it'll take us a lot longer to do, we're not gonna get as far with the
Is it a
400,000.
5-year project, a 10-year project? or-
We're probably beyond 10 years, I think, because we've already been at 10 years just to
Already,
get
yeah.
to 50%,
Yeah.
so.
So when they put new pipes in, they put in PVC?
PVC,
Yes.
How much does that increase the inner diameter of the pipe, or what is the thickness, wall thickness of the line?
It is. But very little.
and so most.
So that's not
doesn't
gonna be
decrease the
increasing.
capacity.
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, it does slightly, but they said that you could line it almost twice before you would start to, it's like affect your capacity levels.
Your flow, right?
It doesn't take care of any bellies that in pipe, those are always there, but it takes care of cracks, broken pieces, we've repaired all kinds of broken pipe. in this business.
We've sent it up there, we're working on Central Weaver.
Yeah, we are, because what happens is this infiltration, all this leaking, it causes the sewer plant really have to have high capacity just to happen. So we just completed our general plan. I've been pushing them to include in that metering, then bill on meter, because right now they bill us, you won't believe this, they bill us on population and assessed value of our homes.
Oh, and when is that assessment, like, back when?
Well, every year.
Every year, okay.
They allocate that, and of course, a house here in North Ogden or a house here in Pleasantview, they cost $100,000 more than to build it somewhere else.
Right.
And I don't know what assessed value has to do with sewer flow,
Right.
but yeah, so
More
we're getting a
expensive
huge, we're getting a pretty substantial
Yeah.
allocation of the cost to run that plant.
Wow.
If these other cities aren't willing to spend the money to line the pipes, then we shouldn't have to pay for the increased costs of plant expansion.
Yeah.
For infiltration.
And to Mayor's point is, we actually sat down with Central Weaver and they acknowledged like how much our lining is doing for them out there. In fact, 2550, kind of by the pool over there, from there to Harrisville, they were expected to do this big sewer project, right? They were actually able to push that project off almost 5 years, right?
Yes.
Because
Wow.
our lining, because
Wow.
the flow that we're sending out isn't you know, it's
Wow.
just, so.
But we don't get any benefit from that.
Not yet, but we're working. on it.
We're working on it.
We'll go with it.
That's the mayor's job. That's why he gets the big bucks. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Any questions on sewer?
Everybody good? Thank you.
Thanks, Trent.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
No, thank you.
Next up is stormwater. Storm Dave Smith couldn't be with us, but you can help me. So Brian's the Assistant Public Works Director. Brian's been with us for 18 years as well, right? So, yeah, so Dave Smith, he's just been out sick the last few days, and so he just couldn't be with us, but. Yeah, I think so.
We make anybody sick.
For the most part, same thing. Some of the clothing, just seeing that we could bring that or back that off just a little bit. Subscriptions to memberships stayed about the same there.
That's just.
That's a coalition, so it's our stormwater coalition. So all the stormwater departments in Weaver County and Box Elder County are part of a coalition. We try to work together, especially like us, right? Like we could not close any of our basins. I mean, you guys have probably all seen 2750's been full for almost a month now. You know, if we weren't working together, we could leave those open. I mean, it's not gonna affect North Ogden, right? It's just gonna go out west and hurt somebody else. And so we got into a good working relationship with all the cities out west, you know, Harrisville, Pleasant View, where we're all kind of on the same team. Like we hold water until they say, hey, in fact, we got a call today that the county said, hey, you know, we're feeling pretty good about like where the water levels are. Like you can let some more out of 2700. Heard the same thing from far west. So then we opened up Mud Creek, which is down off of 1700 on the west side, and we opened up 2700. It'll usually take a couple days to start draining. Problem is we're bringing almost as much water into 2700 as we're letting out. So, but we're able to. So it's just having that open communication and a working relationship with all the cities around us. So
This is one of those stupid questions.
no.
When you say open that up, how do you do that? Is
So-
that computerized? Is that?
No, so we actually have to physically turn, it's just a head gate. So the head gate, we can run it up to where we can let more water into the channel that goes on 2550. It eventually works its way out to like by Big Boy Toys. There's another basin out there, and then they capture the water and they can kind of let it slowly. And so we just all slowly let it till it's either going into Willard or going into the Great Salt Lake eventually, right?
Now ours are like first line, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we don't call somebody and say let more water. It's just
No,
what's coming
yeah,
in.
it's us. So there's a lot of people depending on making sure that we're doing our part, right? Backing up Wadman, backing up the dog park, going up here on the west side. Right now, the east side's pretty good. We don't have the runoff yet off the mountains. We will, but we don't have it off right now. So most of our runoff you're seeing is on the west side. Anything west of Washington Boulevard, we have 7 ponds, big ponds. We have some other smaller ones too, but we got 7 ponds on the west side of Washington, from all the way up from 3900 all the way down to behind Big O and all that area. And at one point we had 5 to 7 that were actually in the overflow. So at that point, there's nothing else we can do, right? We're
Yeah.
holding every bit of water that we can, and we have built-in overflow. So we just actually let them hit the overflow. I don't know if you guys seen it spill on the 2700. It'll actually just spill in and it gets into UDOT system and it kind of works its way out. And so we have, all of those have built-in overflows that protect the home, like they're not going into somebody's house or anything like that. So
How well we lined up this year for floodwaters and things like that? Have we ever experienced this much
I
snow
mean,
here? And
they say back, with it, in 83,
Yeah.
there are some things that we feel like we're in pretty good shape compared to 83, right?
Yeah.
So some of the big stuff that they had was a come out of cold water. We don't have that debris basin there that captures any kind of debris. We'll be able to capture it there. There also were slides near the divide I mean, those are the ones that
Yeah.
knocked the houses off their foundations. We've built in, there's 2 big debris basins. When they did that the White Rock development,
Mhm.
they built in 2 big debris basins that catch there. And then up by Ben Lomond Peak,
Mhm.
it's hard to see, but you can kind of see our reservoir up there.
Mhm.
Next to those, we have 3 really big debris basins as well that will catch any kind of debris there.
Okay.
So we monitor all those. We monitor all of our catch basins. It really is going to be depending on the weather, right? Like,
Yeah.
depending on how fast it warms up and
We want it to warm up, but not too fast.
yeah. So this 70 degrees on Monday and Tuesday are scaring us a little bit, but we'll monitor everything and we'll.
Both bunches.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I'm trying to see.
So the Pineview water tax assessment, that the stuff you talked about, the North Arkansas Canal.
So we actually have to pay property taxes for Pineview water, for detention bases.
So a lot of them have sprinkler systems,
Mhm.
and so to keep those going. We went to a lot of zero-scape and a lot of our new ones, but a lot of the old ones still have those.
I've seen goats in there too.
Yes, we've done that too, yep. This North Ogden Canal it's a payment that they do all the maintenance on the canal, the North Ogden Canal Company. It's the one that kind of comes through here right behind Smith's, through the Bicentennial Park, and then out through Pleasant Lake.
The one that goes
Right in front
along
of your
Pleasant
house.
Park?
Yeah.
So when I have an issue with that, and I
Call.
call the city and they say it's not ours,
It's
and I call North Ogden Canal and they say it's not ours, and I call Pineview and they say it's not ours,
North
I
Ogden,
can tell
and
North Ogden Canal it is theirs.
I can even give you a number.
Yes, it's on YouTube.
Same thing, we talked about the water down at 1500 by Frank's. That's that water that we get charged for sending that piece of stormwater to Arlington City. Preventative maintenance, it's just raising manholes, street sweep. So the street sweeping, this is something last year that we started. So we've always done our own street sweeping. We owned our own street sweeper. As the city grows, we're just not being able to keep up unless we would hire a whole other person and just that's all they would do all day to keep up with some of the street sweeping, right? So last year we actually we outsourced that and hired a company to come in to street sweep for us. And it was probably one of the best things we ever did. They were able to get to some areas that we hadn't swept in years and did some street sweeping that.
But developers are required to do that.
And they do that, yeah, so that's part of their development agreement. And we have a SWIP protection plan that if our guys go out and say, hey,
Dirt is going over there.
you're tracking out mud, like they have to come out, like we can assess fines and those kind of things. And our inspection team is awesome. We'll talk about that here in a second.
So how often do our streets get swept?
So with this 50,000, it'll be 2 times, and then there will be some either like some event planning, but also there will be some money in there if we had a problem, like say we had a big water leak or something where we need a section to get cleaned up, and we still have our sweeper, and that was the big decider. It's like it's time for us to replace our sweeper. We've had it since 2007, and so it was one of those things. Okay, sorry. We've had it since 2010, and so it was one of those things that was like it was getting ready to turn over that piece of equipment's $300,000. So we started doing the math, and it's like, well, we can pay this outside agency. They do all the work, we don't have any of the.
Replace their own equipment.
Yeah,
They do it.
exactly, and it all kind of works out to be that same price, and we're getting them to clean a lot more than we were cleaning ourselves. So we just found that the service is much better going.
How about the little leaves?
Yeah.
Swoop sucker, or whatever you call
That is in this
it.
department too, the leaf truck.
That was a request from a buddy of mine when I got on this committee. He's like, please don't take it away. People really love it.
Except the leaves didn't fall off before winter this year.
This year.
Out of our control.
Don't hold you for that.
Yeah, the leaf truck, it was an awesome service when it started, right? Because there wasn't a lot of people that were asking for the leaf truck.
People liked it all of a sudden.
But it's just became more and more popular, and now it's to the point where we just can't keep, I mean, there was one day we had 165 calls in one day to go pick up leaves. And it's like, there's just no way we can keep up with that service. So
Red Bull.
we've really decided I think we're gonna revamp the way we do that. I think we're gonna take a 2-week window and say, hey, like, we're sorry, but this is the 2-week window where we'll come in, we'll vacuum leaves, right?
So, but, and he'll go in areas and say,
Yeah.
yes, because you can't be beating all the places every time somebody
Like he's
calls.
delivering pizza.
Exactly.
Right.
And so what we're gonna do is probably follow, so we're gonna follow the garbage route, but we'll probably do it the day after. So, you know, on Tuesday's garbage route, we'll be vacuuming out, we'll vacuum that garbage route on Wednesday.
So get your leaves out. If you don't have them out when the truck goes by, you're out of luck.
Yes.
And
Because it's
notify you
just
through the
been so-
magazine or
Yeah,
some way.
and we will,
Yeah.
we'll make sure that we get that.
Communication, yeah.
Communicate out there, so. There's small equipment, it's just that chainsaws, blowers.
You guys go through like a discount place or something, and if you're buying volume of stuff.
So some of it's on the, or we get it on the state discount, or on the, yeah, so there's some pricing that's, some of the littler stuff, it's about 6s, but like chainsaws, I know that he gets cheaper than he does, like, but like the blowers and weed eaters, they're about 6s or whatever. Because we just don't buy enough, like we don't buy any huge bulk. Then there's snow blowers. Snow blowers are just, because all of our ponds have sidewalk near them, and so we take care of all the sidewalk around all of our detention ponds. Purchase equipment, same thing, trucks. It's just that messy. And their capital projects this year, there's a lining, so that same lining that we talked about with Trent's, there's a section of pipe. The problem is it's used, it's a dual use, right? So it moves water for irrigation, but it's also a stormwater system. So it's down by 1,700. They can actually come up and open a head gate, and they can pull that water through our stormwater system, and they can go irrigate out west. It works through our stormwater system where they can pull that water. So
And not a stormy time of year.
yeah. So, yeah. And so, so they pull that right off the canal, and that's the way. But the problem with that section, well, there's a couple of problems with that section. There's in the cracks, there's roots and those kind of things. But I think it doesn't help that we're pulling irrigation water too. So there's other things that get caught in that concrete and all that, right? And so we constantly, that area has just got really plugged. We've cleaned it, I don't know, 3 or 4 times in the last 5 or 6 years.
Yes.
I mean, and these rip balls, I mean, they're as long as the room, like, it's crazy.
I've seen videos.
So,
Lawn, what do they call lawn worms? And I'm like, oh, that's just rip.
so yeah, so what we're gonna line that section so that we can try to control the root problem that we have in that area, because it's really hard. Like, we have to get behind about 6 homes there. It's kind of a pain in the butt. But so we always dig up the one person's yard, and it'll just be really nice to get that section lined where we don't have to maintain it the same way. Yeah.
Questions? So what's the total? There's a big decrease.
It's just because the admin fee isn't on there. Like I said, when we probably pulled this one. It's probably
There's
been
one that's
changing
up
that.
What is the increase for the admin?
So the admin fee is based on what happens in the general fund.
Okay.
And so it's based on, you know, if there's the salary increases, there's expenses in operations, and how that gets dispersed among all the enterprise funds. And so it's just.
You could do
So
a solid
we're
waste.
good. Yes, we are, thank you.
So solid waste, Brian actually runs that department as the assistant public works director. He runs that department as well. Brian.
Unless you don't like what we have to say, then it's right.
So, again, uniforms have went down a little bit. That big difference on the uniforms is like, we moved Brian, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so, because he's the assistant public works director, we moved him out, and so there's only one person now instead of multiple people, right?
Yeah, so his would be allocated into the admin fee.
Yeah. Travel and training stayed the same there. Postage. Trying to see if there's anything.
How much is total postage for all of these departments? Do you know?
That's a very good question.
So it takes it's about $3,400 a month that we're to send out billing, and then also our shut off notices.
Thank you.
Thank you. Phones stay the same. You see a big decrease in the spring cleanup. So we're not getting rid of the spring cleanup. What, we use the exact same company as we use for our garbage, Republic. And so all of those, the dumpsters are already built into our monthly bill. And so that's just where we've left them. And so it's just, so this is just the other stuff that we needed when we dispose of tires. So when people bring a bunch of tires down there, we have a contract with Big O where they'll take our tires at.
Gosh, it was like $3 a tire.
Yeah, something like that. And so.
And then the bigger ones were, I think, 5 or
Yes.
something. When is the spring cleanup again?
It's
Right
six-
before Mother's Day.
6th to the 13th
of this year.
Yeah, in fact, I mean,
That's if the snow's gone.
Right. Subject to change.
so I think that's when we're probably gonna open up the pit for the first time. It's when they do spring cleanup, because it's. Yeah, it's been crazy, so. Tipping fees will go up 4%.
Yes.
That is our contract with Republic, so.
Our
when we-
tipping fees is the Weaver County.
Or sorry,
That's okay.
tipping fees are to Weaver County, sorry.
So what the fuel recovery cost, is that something they just lashed on there?
Yeah, for the garbage hauling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the contract with the public service.
Those poor guys that, listen to some of the machines as they're driving by. And hydraulic fluid down the road. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, typically when we get a call like that, then we quickly notify them
Yeah,
and
I'm trying to get them to stop.
get that truck off the road. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And sometimes it's a citizen that calls us, and so then we would, so,
Well, at 6 a.m., I don't know who to call. But
yeah, but, yeah.
So with the tipping fees, so when we increased the rate, back in January, it was in February, one of those days. They actually increased the rate 11% since just last July. And so we don't know if there's gonna be another rate increase. So last year we got burned by doing a 5% increase. And so this year we said we'll do 3%, but we don't know. We don't know. So that number, could change,
So get yelled at later.
but we don't, yes. Ask for forgiveness, is that what it is? So, and then with the garbage hauling, we did plug in the 4%, anticipating new growth is anybody's gain, and then again, like we talked about the fuel recovery costs. So, we did base it off of the tonnage that we have taken this year. I'm still waiting to get March's number. So just remember that these sheets are very fluid. Information changes all the time. So that number could change based on maybe what's gonna happen in March. And then we still have some time before the budget's actually adopted to figure that number out still. So.
Have they thought about, I mean, because it's based on tonnage, right?
Yeah.
And I guarantee that a significant portion, if not 60% during the summer is from lawn stuff.
Green stuff.
And I don't know if there's already, I mean, I know Green Waste takes that stuff, but it's such a pain. Has there been any more debate on can or is that?
And so there's always that discussion. The problem with that is that the public would have to bring out a whole new driver, a whole new truck. So just to give you guys an idea, every year the council asks us to look at the recycling, right? And so this year, just to do the recycling, with the new driver, the new truck, and then with some of the big increases with garbage hauling, that hauling, the estimate went from $1.99, what is what we pay for that blue can, because it's every other week, right? Just to haul it to the transfer station, it's $1.99. For them to do recycling for us, where they'd have to bring another truck out and another driver, it went up to $6.50 a can. So, I mean, it was a huge increase. So you would be looking about that same thing for them to haul it up to the green waste pit.
Heaven forbid you think. Yeah. But we're all trying to be green.
But again, you mentioned convenience, it's costly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why, I mean, and we've had this discussion with the council too, is, you know, that second can, there was discussions on like, hey, did we bring that price down on the second can? But that's why we keep that cost up, because we typically see that second can is being used for exactly what you just said. That people will, there's a big influx of where Brian will go deliver cans, a bunch of second cans next month. And it is literally just for their green waste for the summer. And then they'll call us back in September and they'll say, hey, come pick up our can because we don't need you. And the other people that use that quite a bit is if somebody's working on, you know, they're going to demo their basement and, you know, and so those two things are very heavy. So in our minds, it's like they should be supplementing everybody else that are putting just normal garbage in there. And so that was one of our big pushes to keep that cost for that second can higher, because the stuff that's typically used in those that we see, it is a lot heavier. So.
Especially where you have the blue one for normal garbage every other week.
Yep.
And
I still kind of put recycled stuff in it just because it's blue. You know?
Yeah, it's a habit, isn't it?
I can't get off. The same truck.
Green waste maintenance is just when we do burn, it's just the money we spend there.
But how can you make those people who live up there happy with those gardens?
So we try, like, we really go out of our way.
Over the years, it has improved a lot with them, with the people up there, because when at first, there was a lot of complaining, and not that we don't get complaints still, but we communicate a lot better with those people up there when we do burn, and we try and burn as fast as we can. And that's why we tell a lot of people that come up there, they're trying to bring up huge stuff. Well, that stuff doesn't burn down in a day. I mean, that could take a week or more. And we try and burn quick and fast, and that's why we regulate what diameter we allow up there. So hence, we're trying to cut down how long we burn and how fast, just because the people out here, they don't want to smell smoke for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So anyway, we've communicated with them a lot better, and it's
So you
seemed
feel that
good.
there's a lot less complaints now? than
Yeah.
there
Yes.
has been?
Yeah, it's improved a lot over the years.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes the only complaints we get are like, they're not even very close to the pit. It's somebody that's you know, it just doesn't like the idea of us burning, right? And we understand, but chipping is so expensive.
Way expensive.
To do the pile that we do for burning, you know, we're between $30,000 and $50,000
To chip.
all that. And then we sit with this.
And then it
chip
sits up
because-
there and not
Because it's
enough people
not,
take it.
yeah, it's not, you know, it's not sprayed and it's, so
Right,
when,
right.
like, nobody's gonna go, you don't wanna go use it in your garden, because we're gonna bring, you'll take a bunch of weeds back with you and all that kind of stuff, and so we've just found, I mean, right now, that's our best. bet.
Maybe I've just been paying attention the last couple of years, but I've just seen complaints.
Yeah,
But you said it's down quite a bit.
yeah,
I mean,
as far as.
I would rather not burn. It's a lot of work and a lot of the guys that help put the fire out is you can't imagine how much water it takes and how stinky, it's a nasty job. So I would rather not burn, but cost wise, that's why we do it.
You have to do
It's
that, or
saving-
not offer the green waste.
Or not off the green waste.
Yeah,
Right.
green waste is very valuable.
So, yeah, it's all about the money.
You use some kind of accelerant to make it burn faster.
No, sir.
Yeah.
No, we can't
Can't do that.
WD-40.
That would help a lot.
No, it was.
And you don't want to fire them. All right. 5 minutes.
Garbage can replacement. So
So it's
if,
destroyed.
if I understand it right, if my garbage can is cracked, you guys will bring me a replacement one.
Yes.
Yeah, if I can't repair it, then we replace it.
So sometimes it's just the axle, right, and so they can go out,
Right. I
change the
think
axle.
Just when it's rubber's cut or the.
Yeah, yeah, it just depends on the damage, you know, some I can fix and some I can't. When they're not repairable, then we replace it. Just so you know, those cans, every time I order,
Increase.
there's an increase from every time. I mean, and when I order, and it takes 12 weeks to get cans, so I'm always looking ahead and seeing how many cans do I think we're gonna go through. $133.39 is what one can costs now,
Wait, how much?
just so you know.
130.
$133.39.
And about 4 years ago, they were about 70.
And they have these hydraulic clamps that just go like that.
Yes.
Yeah, and so, yeah, it's a, yep.
The department supplies is to the ones that we can repair, we do, so. Different stuff for up for the pit. Small equipment, the toolkit, that's just for,
Who's Kyle?
he's in the.
He's in that
He's
solid
in
waste
that
department.
It's in the toolkit this year?
Yes.
He needs one.
Good for him.
Yeah. And then there's. Well, I think that computer was where, that was the one we were talking about taking out. We're trying to do something at the pit to where we can go a little more paperless, or trying to figure out a way to do a punch system different. We actually were able to get a wireless Wi-Fi up there that we think will work for us up there. And so we're looking into different ways that we can run that a little more.
Would that be in place of the volunteer?
No. We'll still have the volunteer, or we pay the person, so. Seasonal person, but it's just so that we can, and he does, or the volunteer does a lot of work in keeping that stuff smaller and doing those other things. But what we do, like right now, like somebody goes and buys a green waste pass, right? So then Brian has to go get the passes from the office. He takes them up there, we put them in a Rolodex, you know, next time, and then they can come pick them up at the roll, you know. So it's like if we could
Yeah.
get rid of some of that stuff and make it a little more seamless to where they could keep loading the same card that they already had, we would be able to do something like that. So we're looking into that and seeing what we can do there.
Yeah, the biggest issue I think up there is trying to get, the service is really tough.
Yeah.
So having that, that's what we're looking at.
Those cards, you're looking at something like has an NFC chip in it, and then.
That or just even just a barcode to where
Okay,
we can run it
barcode,
and
yeah,
then put it right back through our building, so, you know, so that kind of stuff. Purchase equipment, same thing, truck. Cool. Next one is, so Casey Hunsaker is the one that is in the streets, but it's spring break, so he is on vacation with his family. Casey's been with us for almost 10 years now, right? Same thing here, uniform sections stay the same.
What are we on? I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
streets. Travel and training has went up a little bit. Some of that is Casey was named our emergency manager, for the city. And so there's a lot of courses that he's been doing for himself, but as well as like doing courses for the city. You know, he'll run a course. He's getting certified to be able to like run our emergency classes. So he runs the courses for all the other departments. So a lot of that got put into travel and training as well. The motor pool went up with the snowplow truck.
Is that noted 2 places or am I missing?
So we have it in for the streets fund because general fund has to pay for it,
Okay.
but then we also have to account for it in the motor pool.
So it's ×2.
It's not, well, it might look like it's ×2, but on the books it's not. So depending on if we are doing, I don't know if we're doing those or not, but depending on what we're doing there. So yes, because I have to account for it in motor pool, but we're transferring it from general fund to the motor pool in revenues.
Gotcha.
His fuels went down some too, so we moved that accordingly. Computer services, a lot of that was some of our GIS software. So that all went web-based, which is great because we can actually pull up where our water lines are, sewer lines are, street, like it's through our street software that we'll be able to pull up on our phone so that we can look at that in real time. So that's some of that cost increase there. Safety equipment, because he is the emergency manager, we run most of our like safety equipment through him. So these are just the new barricades that we needed to replace. Last year we did just like the candlesticks. And so it was time to do some of these bigger barricades.
Okay. You were going 100 east.
Yeah, that too.
I saw the shine.
Yeah. You can see the power for the streetlights. That's where that is. Like I said, that we do all the streetlight maintenance and all that stuff ourselves, but that's just the cost for the streetlights we have.
Are the LED red lights that we're running now, are they lasting as long, if not better?
Yeah, we're not finding a ton of issues that way. I mean, the only I guess, negative thing that we do find with the LEDs is when we do go troubleshoot it and we find a lot of times it's a Rocky Mountain issue. So then we're having to have their contractor come out. You know, before it was like, it was a little simpler, right? Like it was either a ballast or a bulb.
Yeah.
Like with the old phones, you know, or the photocells or the bulb.
Yeah.
But now it's like, it's just there's a little more to the LEDs, or you just have to replace the head.
Okay.
When we do have issues. Street maintenance, that $50,000 will go tomorrow if we could with potholes.
Yeah, we might end up with that.
Yeah, potholes are gonna be crazy this spring, so. Parking lot, that's just the striping for the pool. I believe that's what we're gonna do that one with. That parking lot one. Where's that one? I don't know. He might be doing here too, because how we did the one way, so.
I thought it was right here.
It is, maybe it is.
So,
yeah. Sidewalk repairs, so every year we put out a sidewalk contract. We have a company come out. Typically, it's usually one of 3 companies that come out, and we It's just basically over that year, we assess sidewalks. Casey puts a list together. We get that list to we actually, when we put the bid out, there's the list of everything, so they can go walk through that area and find out like, okay, this is what it's gonna cost it. And then we come back with a price, and so.
Are property owners responsible for some of the sidewalk repairs?
So they're responsible for their driveway and the driveway approach, because we can't control what they pull in and out of their driveway, right? But as far as the sidewalk itself, if there's, certain, lips or anything like that, we try to typically get on top of that very quickly or acknowledge like what the issue is. So.
Yeah, bad lifts or trip hazard to be so, yeah.
The developer didn't put the right amount of base underneath.
And they said
too.
The safe sidewalk is some of the grants. So Casey goes out and tries to get grants for safe sidewalk. A lot of those are either safe sidewalk or they're like routes to school that we can upgrade. I think last year, or I guess last year we did a piece on 2750 or 2850 that we were able to get a grant for because it was one of those spots where the kids had to walk in the road. And so we're always going after those kind of grants to see what we can do right there. Snow removal.
How'd you do for salt this year?
We went through a lot.
We're gonna put a report together of how much tonnage and.
Oh, that would be nice.
But,
Yep, this year was quite a year.
so,
Now you have the same allotment going here.
But we just increased it to the 69.5 for this year. And so we just left it until we can kind of finish the year and figure out what's gonna happen.
but it was.
So we just did a budget amendment for that, yeah.
And maybe what do you think next year?
I think it was at 50.
Who knows anymore?
Mhm.
Street signs, so we replace all of our street signs, stop signs. Any of those kind of things, poles, anchors, all that stuff. So, paint supplies, we contract, so after we do a road project or with the road project, we put out a paint contract where we'll have them either come, they definitely will come and do all like the school areas, right? So that we have all of our crosswalks and everything around our schools done every year. But sometimes there's other ones that if we did a project next year on 1050, right, we would have to replace the bike lane and all those things. And so it just depends on where we're doing it. This year, we're doing Fruitland with our road project. So really all we have is that middle is just a stripe down the middle, right? There's not gonna be a lot of paint, so we'll be able to focus some of our paint on other places.
Why is it going up so much?
It's just that cost is just went up.
60%.
Quite a bit, yes. So we just found that with the paint vendors, we're not getting anywhere near where we used to get with the $25,000.
One of those required things and they can charge it for it.
Look at it, it's two sides. It's 12.
And then under services not classified, that's where our on-call service is. So we have two different on-call services, one for water, it's just by itself. Well, is that one under this one or no?
No, this one is.
Just the maintenance on call. Okay, so we have a maintenance on call service that if you call after hours, they take all those calls, they dispatch us out and those kind of things. We have somebody that's on call 24 hours a day, but they typically, or well, they don't typically, it's always. We work from Wednesday to Wednesday on call. So our guys are on call from Wednesday to Wednesday. They go for anything that we need. If it's a street sign that came knocked down, then they'll go out and do that. If it's a storm drain backed up, then we'll do that.
Like 24 hours a day.
Yep. So, I mean, if you call them during business hours, you'll probably get the department that actually works on that. But if you call after hours, the service will call us out and we'll go assess whatever the issue is. Any questions there? Okay, last but not least. Those
Brian's
are-
with us again.
I'm gonna sit back there for long.
And Dylan is the one that's actually over this, but again, spring break, and so he's on vacation with his family as well, so. So our inspections department is made up of 3 people, that we didn't, used to have it all, or it used to be all with the building inspections, right? And they kind of covered multiple bases, and going back to what you were saying, when they were putting in new water line and those kind of things, they were stretched so thin that we weren't being able to watch our infrastructure get put in, right? And then we were having to go maintain it after the fact. And so, about 6 years ago, we brought it up back over to Public Works. And they monitor, or they do all of just the pipe and stuff that goes into the ground. We have one person that watches all the SWIP. So they are, if anybody is cleaning a pump truck and it's not being cleaned in the right spot, like,
Me concrete.
yes,
Yeah.
we catch those kind of things. We can find assess and find there.
So if you see somebody, you can call them.
Please do, yes, yeah. So we are, we're very strict as far as SWIP goes. In fact, I would fair to say that we are probably the strictest in Weber County. We are typically a lot more like Salt Lake County in that we always get that, hey, you guys, nobody else cares, only you guys, but we like
You
it
have
that
that
way.
much of dirt in your storm drain. It's kind of hard.
We like it that way, so we're okay with that. But they also, like I said, they inspect all of our water line, sewer line, any of the services going in, any of that kind of stuff. They're making sure that they work very closely with our engineer, and most of our engineering services. He's got all of his stuff in here as well. So they work very closely together to make sure compaction's right on the roads and different things. So yeah, we're way ahead of the curve when it comes to inspections, I feel. So, the little bit of increase for the clothing is that's what person is brand new. We didn't have.
Both of them are brand new,
Oh,
right?
yeah, they both were brand new, the blue sticker and and so it was just, that's where you see that increase. The subscriptions of memberships went down just a little bit because our old engineer had a national certificate.
So did you find a new city engineer?
We have, well,
Sorry.
no. So we
Derailed.
lost Lauren, he retired, and then
Right.
Eric. We had Eric. Eric was gonna leave us, and then
We convinced him to stay.
we are
Yeah.
awesome. He decided against it, so he's awesome. He does a great job, so, yeah. So, yeah, anyways, our old engineer in Lauren, when he retired, he had a national certificate that, and Eric, we don't have that one, and so that's kind of, that was where the decrease was there. The $4,000 for the tickets, so when somebody calls in a blue stick at their home, they don't get charged. It gets passed on to all the utilities that have to cover that, right? And so we get charged per ticket.
And the homeowner gets charged for all the stuff. That they
So, yeah, and so that's where that fee is, and that number is just determined on last year's tickets, right? Like, we have a projection of what we think we're gonna do as far as blue stakes, and that's there. Travel and training, again, we moved all of our engineers training into here, as well as some of my training into here.
And where was it before?
So I wasn't the assistant. city
Oh.
manager, so
Right,
there's
okay,
certain
okay.
certificates that I need, and then Eric, the first year, we just didn't have a lot of his training like built in, but he's getting to where he needs some of his certs lined back up, and so his went up as well. Let's see what else was another big one. This one's a really basic.
What is the motor pool for in this one?
It's just a vehicle leases, right?
Yeah, so they all have trucks, so Dylan and
Yep.
Crystal and,
Dylan, Crystal, and Caleb all have vehicles, so that's just paid into the motor pool. Just right there. Because they're
Oh,
not,
okay,
so they're not an enterprise fund, so
okay.
they're through motor pool. Does that make sense?
I'm slow. This
Oh.
kind of stuff makes no sense to me. but I'm learning.
Apartment supplies have went up, mostly just, again, aerosol paint is just, it's went up quite a bit, so.
and it's a newer department, so we're still learning all the things that
Yeah.
we're actually needing, so.
Yeah.
That we've taken maybe from other departments or not.
And then on the small equipment, it's just time for us to replace that line locator that we have. The line locator we have is they're like 12 years old, right around there. So that technology.
Some of these extra things, like the small equipment, that will be this year only.
Yeah.
And then you shouldn't need it again for
And then we won't need
5 years, 10 years, or whatever.
12 apparently.
But there will be something
There
else
might
that
be
will
a
probably have to
different
be
small
replaced
equipment.
next year, right?
Yeah, I mean, in their budget, there's not, there, I guess there is the trembling units, which is what we shoot our GPS in. That's another equipment that we have in there.
So for some of this kind of stuff, you just request what you need for that year. There's not, like with the snowplow, and it's gonna cost you 300,000. Do you plan ahead for that and plan so much each year?
And we try to do that with these too, right? Like have an idea of like that, hey, we know that we try to make those line locators at least last 10 years on us, you know, and so we plan, it's like, okay, you know, we're gonna plan the next one is in 10 years, and make it last 2 more years than that,
But you don't take a little bit out every year.
that's part of the depreciation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, I told you, I'm a little slow on this stuff. Okay, gotcha.
That is us.
So that's everything.
That is
Is
us.
everybody,
Everything that makes the city work, huh?
I know there's some big tickets.
Yeah, yeah.
When we look at it from that standpoint, but.
does anybody else have any questions before we're gonna stick around for a few minutes, but are we all good? Okay, well, as a committee, I want to thank all of you. I appreciate how detailed everything was, and I appreciate the fact that you were willing to come here and give us your time. So
Triple
thank you very
overtime.
much. Thank you.
I couldn't say enough about it, what our guys did.
Yeah, they all seem amazing, yeah. Yeah,
Thank you, guys.
thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
I guess not. I don't know. Am I not?
I just had some general questions for this lady. over here.
Oh, for Jane.
She was getting ready.
Oh, did she think she was leaving? Is that
I
what
know,
you're
right?
saying?
She's like, I'm slipping out. So the only thing I really had on the whole thing is a depreciation log in-out thing that we track for each department.
Yes, there is. We have a depreciation schedule for every single department, and it's audited every year, so we have to run, so not the general fund. But, so all the enterprise funds, they all have their own depreciation schedule, and then the depreciation is handled in motor pool. So motor pool is a special revenue fund. And so that's where we handle things that are from the general fund. as a depreciation mechanism, if you will.
Right.
So,
So each, yeah, so because each department has a motor pool thing and a depreciation thing, depending on its equipment or.
So-
something else.
so the motor pool is the special revenue fund. So that one, so motor pool handles the big equipment. So like the backhoe, the tractor, the mini
Dump
excavator,
trucks.
those kind of things, dump trucks, those kind of things, where all the departments use. And so the motor pool is set aside to, and also all the maintenance, like, all, I mean, they handle all of the police cars. They're working on all the snow plows, you know, that's what our motor pool does. We have 3 mechanics over there. And so whatever their expenses are is how we allocate it to all of the different funds. And so that's where that motor pool lease comes in. So it's
How long have we
big-
been doing the depreciation? That's something you upgraded.
So depreciation, came up last year because there was a way that the budget was set out to where depreciation was being spent, if you will, every year instead of being set aside. And so that was what the big jump was for last year, as we corrected that.
And now that should help us downstream,
Yeah.
shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because these funds will be there
Correct,
instead of having to raise them in the year that you need the,
right.
So,
Yeah.
so for every year, like you need a new leaf sucker thingy, then that department will pay for it as opposed to the motor pool, right?
Yeah,
Just
so,
specific. for that.
so, yeah, so if it's department specific, yes.
So, and they plan for that, so they don't, you know, so you don't have this fluctuation in year variation. What I was looking at is that you have these things that you can't budget, you know, this ginormous amount. Okay. That was it.
Okay, you can go.
Oh.
I don't know what's up.
you don't have to go though. Please don't.
Hey, you don't have to be here, so you can go when you're ready to go. So does anybody else have anything? So last week's meeting was Doug wanted us to get together and like brainstorm and discuss, like when we had heard other presentations, like if something after the fact, we said, you know, what if that was the whole, I think, intent behind that. But it's difficult for a lot of people to, you know, get
That's why I
off work,
couldn't- well, yeah, I couldn't
every
make it, yeah.
single Wednesday, so.
Why
And there
don't we
just
even come
wasn't,
up with anything?
yeah, we didn't, there wasn't a lot of stuff that people actually had to, making you mad, am I?
No, he just wants to see it.
Now I want to see John over there.
Oh.
And Don and Dave are still there.
Yes, that was the whole thing, and it just, there wasn't a lot.
Well, yeah, I dumped all the things I knew. or-
Yeah, well, and that was probably 75% of
Okay.
the meeting, so, yeah, so we just decided, instead of doing that, we'll try this week and see how it works, and maybe we just don't need to, you know.
I don't think so. I mean, that was a ginormous part. The funny thing is, these departments, you know, it's all of the inner workings and.
A lot of money went by us today.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot.
Inner depreciation and all that stuff, and the fact that you have to have certain things to run the city. And, you know, nickel and diming the water system, you're not gonna be doing. You know.
Now, how does, and with John here, that's why I wanted to make sure he'd stay with it.
Mhm.
And Dave, how does, between you, Dave, and the city council, I mean, you put through a lot of proposals to buy things this year. And I imagine you make the same presentation to the council, and then they help you decide whether we have the money to do it this year or whatever. How does that work? In other words, whoever tells him no. In other words, that's what I want to know. Is what,
Well, so a good example is the snowplow truck we're getting in the month. When that was finally authorized to purchase, it was, hey, council, remember, this is the same truck we asked for 2 years ago. You told us no. The one you asked for last year, you told us no. And then they finally said yes, so we ordered, and then it took us 2 years.
yeah.
So really, we're like 4 years behind.
Mhm.
But there is a lot with Jamie, myself, the mayor, and even Dave working with his individual supervisors that are just saying, I think we can wait. I think we can delay. But eventually some of those items we end up
We
just.
don't want them to break down altogether on us, no.
Like the lift truck is a good example where it is functioning, but at some point it won't. And the risk for a lawsuit or something that might come out of that is not worth the $22,000 it'll cost us. a
Dave
year.
comes over and demos for you, show you how bad it is.
Well, and it's just, it's 25 years old. We've had it for 20 years. And it just technology of those and the safety equipment on those is
Yeah.
just so much better. So we do say no a lot. The department heads do a lot of no's. Like we usually get together and start talking about what do we need, what and where, and we horse trade a little bit because we know there's a finite amount of money. This year it's been a
So
little.
you get together, so you and Dave and all the department heads you're saying, or just you?
So we usually, when we know there's a need, we'll
Yeah.
pull the groups in that are asking
Involved.
for extra things and start talking about, hey, what are the benefits? What are the trade-offs? And usually we can come to kind of a good compromise. But occasionally last year was a good example where we brought the council a budget that wasn't balanced. And we said, these are all these things that we need. So council, you need to tell us what you want cut because we can't come to a consensus or at least have a strong feeling because we were starting to get into the high level policy decisions. And so the council did, and part of that included the tax increase, the property tax increase, but they also cut out, I think, $500,000. We were $700,000 in the red and they cut out close to 500,000 in just that in the public meetings. So
With the depreciation one, is that where you're gonna be like 5 years, we needed blah, blah, blah? The big stuff, that's basically what it's designed to do.
yeah, ideally, we would love it if we replaced a snowplow every 2 years, for example. So Dave, as you heard Dave say, we've got 12 big trucks. If we replace one every 2 years, that means the oldest truck is 24 years old in an ideal world.
So do you depreciate it in 2 years?
No, but we take each truck and depreciate it over the 20-year life or whatever. Is it 10 or 20?
I think so.
Oh, so it's over 10 years. And then we get 10 years where we're not depreciating it because it's free. It hasn't burned up or broken down too much. But in theory, that 10 years we accumulate enough money to then replace the next truck that comes due. The trouble is they're all going up so much that we're still having to inject a little bit of extra capital because of the increase. But that idea that Dave was talking about with the smaller truck, we won't be able to use all small trucks, but we're thinking we might be able to stagger it so we don't have 12 big trucks and 10 little trucks. We have 8 big trucks and 6 medium trucks and 6 small trucks or something like that. That's kind of the plan.
Yeah.
Where does the depreciation money sit?
Depends on the fund. So if we're talking snowplow, it's in motor pool.
And so we just.
It's in a bank someplace.
Yeah, right, yeah. In a blank, in a bank.
It's in
Yeah,
this
but
envelope in my closet.
Can I be in charge of depreciation?
So the state requires us to hold all our funds in either very conservative investment funds, like the treasury bonds that we've been buying lately, or the public PTIF, public treasure investment fund.
Is that the state fund?
Yeah.
It's state. They do an investment, but theirs are they're the same thing, low risk. What was it? 20 years ago, they didn't have a lot of rules and some cities got burned. Their internal folks made some risky investments and they lost the money.
Don't want to have happen what happened to the banks recently.
Right. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Alex.
Just question, discussion on the water park over here. When's that coming out? Is that going to be down the road or is that?
So do you mean the pond park?
Not that,
The one by my house.
Oh, the aquatic center.
thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that should be coming probably in the fall. We're doing a study right now on RDA funds, CDA funds, and how to spend them. And there are some council members who, as I've said in public meetings, might have an interest in using some of the RD funds to redo the playground equipment. You know, the water feature in the center of the pond of the aquatic center. It's 20 years old and is ready to be changed. But that's like a $250,000 piece of equipment.
Is there any kind of idea to make it so that that's not always running in the red and just sucking money out, or?
What swimming pools do. most
Yeah,
every
you've been
swimming
running
pool.
it
Well,
recently,
it's not
though.
even, I mean, even too, it's like, I mean, it's like half the year it's just sitting undercover, not being utilized, and, is there any talk of maybe expanding it in some way, shape, or form that part of it could be like maybe in the pool, make it available for high school use, swim teams, anything like that, or?
You could cover it.
So we've talked about that.
See ya.
The council even looked at doing it back in 2007. And I think that the feeling from the residents was, no, don't spend the money.
Yeah.
We've talked about expanding the hours, you know, going all weekend long. We've looked at different ways. 2 out of the last 3 years, we've actually been in the black.
Oh.
If I say that cautiously.
If we juggle this over here.
Well,
If you don't count,
well, I was gonna say, if you look at the fact that we have a $250,000 playground that needs to be redone over there,
Yeah.
then it doesn't float, right?
Yeah.
current
But
operations.
operationally, the last couple of years, because of the hot weather and everything, it's been doing quite well. Employee expense is one of the biggest expenses.
Oh.
Chemicals have gone through the roof. Chlorine has been very bad. And so we're looking at different ways. We're looking at this year, possibly some advertising, possibly some sponsors of like the lifeguard uniforms.
Okay.
So we're trying to find ways, but it's the weather actually has more of an impact on whether it's in the black or red than anything else, just
Okay.
about.
Okay.
But if you see something, like if you go to another pool and you say, hey, I saw this was really cool. We would love additional ideas.
Okay.
We are looking at entry rates this year, as well as other just rentals, not that we do like a cabana service, but you know, ways to just get additional money.
Well.
Do you need a cabana for the day, Ben?
An adult swim and, yeah, cocktail and, I'm okay with that, yeah. We can make something out of this here, yeah. Okay.
So,
Okay. Cool, thank you.
Is your phone, Dave?
Yes, sir.
I thought somebody's left me.
So do we have anything else? And keep in mind, you cannot, when you have questions in between, maybe we don't need to do what we're doing now.
At least
you
if we
know?
just email it out to the group, because.
Oh, well, and
everybody seems-
that's Randy's position as our liaison. That's, am I correct? We send questions to Randy and he will go,
Or John and.
yeah, he'll
staff.
figure out how to get the answer and get back to us. So that's, yes.
I think what, at least my understanding of what Doug wanted with this extra meeting is that we sat through the meeting and then he wanted to sit down, or he did sit down and say, okay, I think that this can be cut and this can be cut. And we talked about that, or, you know, he would like to make suggestions to the city council of what this group thinks can be cut. I think the problem was, as each of us brought up a question, it was, well, this is why it has to be this way. So I don't feel like we came up with anything that we could go to the city council and say, okay, you've got $20,000 here, we think you can cut this.
Right.
Well, we don't have the expertise
No.
to second guess
So-
Dave on it and his staff, you know.
Well, and that would be my only thing today, would be, is there anything that we saw in these budgets that we feel like can be cut?
Yeah.
I personally didn't. I thought the explanations were excellent. I had no clue that it took this kind of money to run the inside of this. I had no idea. No idea. But I don't see anything where I thought that's unnecessary. We're gonna do away with
Right.
that.
Well, I don't think we're gonna be part of the big decision, and that's salaries.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of our budget is tied up in salaries, isn't it, John?
yeah, the general fund, you know, I mean, it's more than half.
And how much
Yeah,
increase
no,
you know, the decision of what the increase for the year should be and so forth. I think the council's gonna hang on pretty tightly to that. And
Well, that's just it too. I mean, looking at all the people that came in here today, I don't know if this is common for all cities, but the amount of years of experience that we've got here, that you've been able to retain people that
Yeah.
long.
That would, to me,
That's
that was
impressive.
truly shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
And it's just like, okay, these guys getting paid, I mean, what is the draw other than,
Right.
Well, then you heard him say some of them wanted to leave and they talked
And
them
then-
out of it, so.
well, either that or they did a walkabout and then came back, so.
Yeah.
And we've had 4 employees in the past 4 years that have left
Yeah,
and come back,
yeah,
both to private industry or other cities. And they just, especially public works, they create a real good environment over there and it's a good place to work.
it sounds like you've fixed the problem in the police department for the most part as well.
Like, I mean, I hope so. I feel like people are happier. But it's, every job's never perfect. I mean, I'm not, some days I come to work and I'm not happy to be here, but I'm still here. But most of the time I'm happy to be here, right? So. One thing I would say, and I've said this to Doug several times, is the best way to save money, and I'm not saying we should do this because I believe in all the programs of the city, but it's eliminating a program. A good example is eliminating recycling. Whether you're for it or against it, is ultimately ended up saving quite a bit of money on the monthly utility bills.
so with that, as far as my understanding is, recycling really isn't being recycled anymore. It's just going to waste.
It depends on the plant.
Okay.
There are some plants that are better than others,
Okay.
and some material is picked out no matter where it goes because it's so valuable. I mean, metal is one of those things that will always be taken out of the recycling
Sure.
stream.
Okay,
But some, like cardboard was great for a while, and then it tanked.
yeah,
And so it kind of depends, but that is one of the complaints with some of the recycling shops around here, that they were more of just a transfer station than an actual recycling facility.
Well, and then they went from paying us to us paying them.
you're right.
Yeah.
That's-
Well, and if you want to recycle, there are places because I lived in Layton for 20 years. They didn't have recycle, they just did not. My husband worked on base. Every Saturday, he loaded the back of my truck and he took it, and on base, they had these huge bins.
Yep.
Glass, brown glass, paper, plastic. And there are places here, you can find a place if you really want to be.
When I replace a washing machine, I take it to that place on 12th Street. and
Yeah.
They pay me $5 for it.
And Dave, every year, Dave looks at it to see if there's a way for recycling to pay for itself.
Yeah.
Part of the problem with recycling was if you put one piece of dirty garbage in your blue can, that whole truck has to go to the garbage dump.
Yeah.
And if I'm not, I know Ogden City went around and wrote tickets. They would look in people's garbage cans and
I
write
didn't know
them
that.
tickets because they were
Okay.
putting garbage in
and
it.
stuff like that.
And I don't know that we can afford something like that, but that, my understanding was the main reason, because we were having to pay for it. And it was just ended up going to the dump because people were contaminated.
So then how, I mean, do you have any idea how often people are just throwing just garbage in there and using it as just an extra garbage can?
I
And
think we're all doing that
That's
now.
what it is, that's what it is
now.
that's what
now.
it is now. Okay,
Yeah.
so.
But from what I understand
Yes.
also from another meeting, the cardboard
Yeah.
recycling down by the old fire station,
Yeah,
some people are using that for garbage as well. And so then that just has to be taken to the garbage
Just,
dump.
Yeah.
And when we do find that, we do have cameras over there and are able to enforce it, because it's easier to tell, because it's hard to get it out of the back of your truck without us seeing the bag or
so
whatever.
you are actually catching people and you go,
A couple times we've got to where the point, it's like, we've got their
wow,
license.
okay,
and those
good,
kinds of things.
yeah.
I think it's kind of a tribute to you, Dave, that these guys, that you're able to keep these people this long.
Yeah.
When you get all those personalities and somehow you've made them work, so they're working, they seem to enjoy each other.
And
So
they enjoy each other.
That's.
Yeah, you
the
can
big
tell
thing.
that when they were sitting there, they're looking at each other and
How long have you been here?
18.
That's
Wow.
not
Going
an
on
easy thing to pull off, different organizations,
Yeah.
To see a happy crew like you had behind you.
Again, it goes back to those programs we talked about last time, like the spending on like the the employee gathering stuff.
Yeah.
Like when you look at it as a number, it seems like a lot. When you look at the low turnover, it's worth the
Yeah.
$200 an employee
Yeah.
we spend a year or whatever it is.
Yes,
And
sir.
so it's hard to quantify some of the stuff.
Yeah.
People start feeling like a team and then they enjoy each other. Yeah, they feel like they're doing something together.
And that's why I think it's nice for us to have these meetings and have them on YouTube, because if you just look at this individual budget, sure, cut 5,000 off of that. But when you wear one budget, well, but you compare one like the dinner, the hospitality
yeah.
dinner, or whatever, I don't remember the name of the budget, but that was a lot of money. But when you start looking at that and thinking, like you said, how it's making a difference with the employees and their staying, and if they weren't, and you would be putting out a lot more
All you
money.
gotta do is
than
lose
that.
one employee and
And
you
you
spent
make
that
up
much
with it.
or more trying
Yeah.
to get them back.
And
So I
we
don't think
did,
you can look at it, I guess my point was you can't look at an individual budget and say
Right.
like this, because you gotta see the whole.
yeah, well, and just looking at this piece of paper, you don't none of us understand what each of those lines entails.
No.
If they hadn't been sitting here, answering when we said, such and such, what is that? We couldn't just, go to the council and say, yeah, cut this out right here. We think that's unnecessary. Even
Well, I
though
don't
we
know
don't
why
know
they
what
would.
it is.
Why were they paying big old $1,000?
Yeah.
Now I know.
I do get the impression that there's some cush put into these, Dave. I mean, in other words, I've heard you don't want to go to the council to upgrade every time that something unusual happens. And so some of these round numbers, I think, I don't know, don't you have safety in those numbers? So you try to go under those numbers for sure?
Well, and I think that you've seen it in the audit committees where, when we look at it quarterly, we're looking at, we're 25% of the year and we're spending right at 25%, and then we're at 50%. I mean, I think the audit committee is kind of helping, showing that we're staying within our budgets. And then if you go back and look at last year, that most of the budgets came in anywhere between 80 to 100% of their budgets, depending on what department it is, right? And kind of what happened, turnover, those kind of things. Where like the police department are very adamant and like they're very good at their budget, and he spent like right at 100%. But it's nothing.
Extraneous.
Yeah. And so is there a little cush? It might feel that way, but you got to remember, here we started in January and we're trying to anticipate the next 12 months, and costs go up.
Actually, the next 18 months or so.
Well,
Yeah, okay.
if you figure,
You
the
don't even
next
start
6
until
months are
July.
kinda already- well, but those 6 months are kind of already planned.
Mhm.
But we do go back for budget amendments. I mean, we've already gone back twice in 2 months, in February and March. And we're probably anticipating another one in June because of like snowplow expenses, like, we're just not there. And so it might feel that way. And then there are things where they budget. So like some of these numbers on here, I think Chris called it out, like, well, why did this only go up like $1 million, in the capital projects? Well, there's some things that we budget, we don't get to, or things change or stuff
I
happens.
mean, yeah,
that-
contractors can't.
So then we have to put it in next year and the price might go up.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the other
it's
concept.
It's a balancing act.
The other concept is if you squeeze your departments too much, then it's a game playing thing where, then they'll spend it because they think, well, next year it'll be such a fight to get it back in there. And if you have a little bit of relax, it's kind of like you trust your departments, and so you don't squeeze them to the last ounce.
I do the same thing with my budget though, because I can expect every year my lights is gonna go up. So I put a little cushion there because I don't want it to all of a sudden shock me. Or gas, gas was almost $4 now, it's down a little bit, so maybe I still have a little cushion in my budget because I don't know if it's gonna go back up to 4.
Yeah, you were gonna say something, Dave?
No, I was gonna agree with you there that, when you said that if you don't squeeze them so hard, like that they are panicking and then like, okay, well, I'm gonna spend every single penny in this department. And we were able to adjust that clothing allowance because they don't do that, right? They don't, you don't see our departments going and buying shirts or pants just because
You have the budget.
there's a
budget.
little bit of money in there, right?
Yeah.
They use the money that, whatever they need for pants and shirts. And so,
And a good, I do know one, I can think of a good example of like Trent in sewer. One year towards the end of the year, he came and said, hey, I've got $12,000 that I don't have a way to spend, but we need this camera. We've never bought it. It's $8,000. And so, but Dave and me, and I don't remember if Jamie was involved. No, it wouldn't have been because it was before Jamie was finance director, but we just had a conversation and said, well, do we need it? Right? So there is anytime it's kind of that unanticipated excess and expense, there's always a conversation before people just go out. And so Trent didn't just go buy the camera.
Yeah.
We always run it through. And then we have some stuff where it's safety related, where we actually end up not buying some things and we move it to a safety budget because we realize, oh, we need that equipment. We bought a new pipe cutting saw that just has an extra safety feature on it that makes everyone safer because of we call it a near miss, where the saw kicked and the new style saw wouldn't do that. Or not in the same way, I guess I should say. So
So in my past life, I've even been told, this is before North Ogden City, so it didn't happen
Yeah.
here. But I've been told, go ahead, cut my budget. That means I don't have to work.
Oh, okay.
Like, so not that that's ever happened here. I don't want to get that, but
Yeah.
it goes along with what we say. If we cut them too much.
Well, I can
Kind of
sense there's a
thing.
level of trust in the city
Yeah.
that's healthy, and one's not trying to work the other, but you do discuss these things to make sure you're not wasted and so forth. Yeah, and we got teams that stay on with us and know what they're doing, and we're not redoing things we don't.
And if one of those left, how long would it take to get someone to get all that experience, all that knowledge, all that? And I mean, look at the relationships they've built, going to training, they know this guy always knows the latest about whatever.
It's travel knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, it's all that. You can't hire someone to replace that. Unless he's pissed at the city because they're not paying him enough.
there's a gentleman who just retired, Scott Felter, and we still call him because of things he knows from his 40
Yeah.
years with the city. And, he's happy, he likes us, and that he appreciates the call. In fact, he swings
Yeah.
by the shop just to say hi sometimes, but
Yeah.
you're right, that institutional knowledge is huge. The one thing that Dave and the other department heads are doing though is we're identifying a succession plan in almost every department.
Yeah, and we're hearing
Yeah.
that here, here and there, just people saying stuff. So that's great too.
yes.
Yeah, and that helps with that, pass on to be like, hey, you need to learn the SCADA system because we need someone who can step in.
There are lots of cross training, you said.
Yeah, lots of cross training. And like SCADA is a perfect example of that. So we have 8 guys that monitor our SCADA. It's kind of on that same on-call schedule.
Monitoring what?
Our SCADA, which is our water system
Oh,
on the
okay.
computer, right? Where we can monitor the levels and all that. So there's 8 guys that are on that. 4 of them are in the water and 4 of them are in other departments because they've either previously been in the water or they're really good with the computer stuff. And so, yeah, like we are very, as far as cross training goes, like
Covered.
they're
Yeah.
very comfortable with each other, and it speaks. I mean, you guys see it. They're
Yeah.
they're awesome.
Well, sometimes we complain about too much growth in our city, but I think it's actually a healthy thing for our employees to know that our city's getting bigger. There's more opportunities for them in our city government. To be in a dwindling or a stagnant city, I don't think you'd have quite the feeling of opportunity you would in a city that's growing.
Is, completely side note, so where we have the city's money invested, has there been any talk of investing in other directions like commodities or stuff like that, especially like silver, gold, precious metals? Just because of at the rate at where the dollar's going, has there been any talk about where else to put it?
So the only thing that we've expanded outside of the PTIF at this point has been the treasury bonds.
Okay.
And they're short-term, 6 and 12-month buys. I don't know if the PTIF invests in commodities like that.
No, we have to be, there's certain things we can do, we cannot do, obviously, and we have to follow those rules. And I know that we can't like do anything with like commercial paper, anything that's under a B. So L has to be A,
So
those kinds of things. I don't know, actually, it's funny, I don't know about gold and silver, but I'm gonna say no. Because I don't know if that's ever.
Speculative investment, yeah.
There might be a scenario
I don't
where
know about that one.
they own shares in a fund, the PTIF as a whole, that includes some like gold and silver assets.
electronically traded fund that
Yeah,
could represent commodity, okay.
yeah, but
We have, everything that we do has to be through a
financial
a
advisor.
broker, yeah. It
Yeah.
has to be through.
And there's only like 8 financial brokers that cities can use because the state says these are the people who we trust to put you in the safe investments.
So there's a money management council at the state level, and they're the ones that decide what the cities can do with public funds, so.
Yeah, you can do what you want with your own funds, but with the city funds, we gotta be careful.
Yes, safety first.
I have to take off. Thanks, you guys.
Yep.
Oh, when are we gonna meet, when are we gonna meet next time?
So 2 weeks from tonight, Wednesday, the
19.
19th, 3 o'clock, and it will be, John,
Police and parks.
okay, okay.
I'm gonna be on vacation that week, so I won't be
Can't
here.
you
but
just go on vacation?
I just went to St. George. We don't
What's
have another
vacation?
vacation. But, yeah, so I'll get a report into you if there's any,
Okay,
yeah.
did you, so you got it?
Bryce
figured out?
helped me do
Oh,
it.
good. okay.
Yeah, and the part we're not doing right is you have to go into Outlook. And I wasn't even doing that at all, so
Yeah.
that's why I wasn't able to go any further. But, yeah, it wasn't too bad once he
Good.
walked me through it once.
Okay.
So I think you just need to officially adjourn.